Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. We are at 7:01. Sorry about the bit of a late start. We are just waiting on a few people to get connected, as happens in these technological environments. So I will call our meeting of the Education Committee to order at 7:01. In attendance, we have all trustees attending virtually. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to read the land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water, originally inhabited by indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements made between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenni Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi, and Huron-Wendat peoples. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. I'm now briefly going to pass it over to Trustee Leclerc, who has some remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd like to read a statement on behalf of the trustees and our administration. Dear Greater Essex County District School Board families, like many of you, we too watched in horror the tragic footage of the death of George Floyd while in police custody in Minneapolis. We also saw the resulting protests, both violent and peaceful, that took place all over North America. Here at the Greater Essex County District School Board, it is important that we acknowledge and recognize the current as well as the historic incidents of anti-Black racism, not only in the United States, but also sadly here in Canada. Living in a border city, we acknowledge that many of our students and our families are likely experiencing powerful emotions and have questions linked to this traumatic event. In times like these, it is understandable that emotions are forefront, especially with those students who identify as African, Black, and Caribbean, and their families. Please know that we are sharing specific resources and supports with our staff on how to facilitate these discussions. If you have any concerns about your child's well-being, please do not hesitate to contact your school principal so we can arrange for the appropriate supports. We want to reaffirm to you our commitment to human rights, equity, and inclusion. We want our families and our communities to know that we remain steadfast in our opposition to hatred, violence, discrimination in any form. We know that the most powerful weapon against hatred and ignorance is education. We remain united as a community of learners. We are committed to ensuring inclusive, equitable, and safe spaces for all. The recent incidents serve to remind us that we have more work to do and we must all stand together. We must intervene and respond to situations of racism, as too often silence can be misunderstood as permission. Together, we will continue to build schools and communities that are respectful, inclusive, and caring and kind. It is up to all of us together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very timely message, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm looking for approval of the agenda. And trustees can comment in the chat section. So I've got an approval from Trustee Cook and a second from Trustee Sipkar. Thank you so much. Any discussion? So I'm going to ask if there's any opposition instead of asking for approval, so we don't kind of clog up the airways. If you want to type support in the chat, that would be great. We'll be looking for trustees to support in the chat. So we've got 2. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Looks like we're all in favor of approval of the agenda. We are now at D, Declaration of Conflict of Interest. Do I have any declarations of conflict of interest? I see no declarations. I'm looking for approval of the minutes, and I see I've got approval from Trustee Hatfield and second from Trustee Sartori. Thank you very much. Do we have any discussion on approval of the minutes from May 5th? That took me a hot minute. Any discussion on the minutes from May 5th? All in favor, can you put support in the comments section there? Sorry for the silence from everyone listening here. This is just, I know it seems terrible, but it's easier to do it this way on everybody's ears as we clog up when we come in. Thank you very much, trustees. I appreciate that. Any business arising from the minutes? Do I see anyone with business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move through to, we are at presentations, and it is one of my favorite presentations of the year, where we get to celebrate students. And in this time where almost everything is changing and all of our celebrations are kind of altered with this, it's so nice to be able to celebrate our students. So take it away, Superintendent Canty.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. Before I begin with our scholarship and bursary award recipients, I want to take a moment to thank the selection committee who took the time to review 160 worthy candidates for various scholarships and bursaries that have been generously provided by our greater Essex community. The members of this year's selection committee are Board Chair Ron LeClaire, Trustee Jessica Satori, Principal Dave Scadden from Westview Freedom Academy, Principal Sash Korbach of Essex District High School. I also want to thank my executive assistant, Deb Primo, who did all the behind-the-scenes work with our tireless IT department, and Natalie Middleton-Bondi, who worked directly with our guidance departments at our schools to make the virtual selection process a reality. It takes a team, and I'm proud to be a part of this one. Now to our award winners. The very first award I want to mention, before I do, I'm honored to say that Robert and Deborah Little are present. They are on our live stream. And they are going to be providing a scholarship for 10 recipients. Next slide, please, Rochelle. Renewable for these students for up to 4 years of their undergraduate education. Now, I'm going to begin reading some of the winners of this award, but again, I just want to thank Bob and Deborah for being present on our live stream. The first winner of the scholarship, the Little Scholarship this year, next slide please, is Deana Quazi from Sandwich Secondary School. Deana is currently in the process of completing her final year at Sandwich Secondary School. She's maintained a strong academic average and excellent learning skills. Her initiative, dedication, and work habits have been exemplary. Deana achieved such a high level in her grade level year that she was accepted into the Outstanding Scholars Program at the University of Windsor. Deana has been involved in several school-based programs related to her future pathway and her love of biology and English. Deana plans to continue her education at the University of Windsor in the Integrated Biology Program to pursue her goal to become a doctor. Deana has been involved in Sandwich Secondary School as a peer tutor, grade 9 day leader, and as a photographer for the school website and yearbook. She is a dedicated, hardworking individual who works collaboratively with staff and students. Deana shows strong initiative and exceptional leadership skills in the field of study and in her own interest. Deana has published her own poetry and has been involved in our community, volunteering her time during summers at Oakwood Community Center. Deana approaches all tasks and activities with enthusiasm, a sense of purpose, and optimism. We wish Deana continued success in all of her future endeavors. The second award winner of the Bob and Deborah Little Scholarship is Raymond Roy from Herman Academy Secondary. It is our pleasure to congratulate Raymond Roy as a recipient of the Robert Little and Deborah Dean Little Scholarship. Raymond is currently in the process of completing his final year at Herman and plans to continue his education at Carleton University in the Faculty of Science with a view of becoming a doctor. Raymond has consistently demonstrated exceptional commitment to his academic program, as well as strong leadership in school and community-based initiatives. Raymond has been involved in many school programs that have drawn on his leadership and organizational skills. He's involved in the school's Gender and Sexuality Alliance, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and is a lead member of our robotics team. He has entered several science competitions and is currently constructing a drone to be used in search and rescue missions. Raymond successfully completed a cooperative education placement with the Royal Canadian Navy and continues to be involved as a naval reservist. Once completing his medical degree, he envisions himself working with Doctors Without Borders so he can provide medical assistance to those who need it most. In his spare time, he also composes music for a string quartet. He has accepted any and all responsibilities in these various roles and has consistently demonstrated initiative and strong commitment. Raymond is a dedicated, hardworking individual who works collaboratively with staff and students. He shows strong initiative and exceptional leadership skills and is a valued member of our school community. He approaches all tasks and activities with enthusiasm and a sense of purpose and optimism, skills that will serve him well as a doctor. Congratulations, Raymond. The next winner of the Little Award is Marissa Union from Riverside Secondary School. Marissa enters her final year at Riverside Secondary School, where she has been an exemplary student. She is a conscientious student who displays respect for others, along with an excellent work ethic. While actively involved in all aspects of student life, she has been on the honor roll each year, as well as the recipient of several other academic awards. Marissa has proven to be a leader both inside and outside the classroom, as she's been a member of the school's soccer, basketball, volleyball, and slow pitch teams, as well as a member of student parliament and other event committees. She is well respected and admired by her peers, and her teachers have recognized her abilities as a leader, a role model, and a well-rounded student by selecting her as the recipient of the Award of Excellence in 2018. Yet what stands out most about this young lady's life is the number of hours she dedicates each year in volunteer service to her community. Some of the community groups that have benefited from her kindness include the Forest Glade Baseball League, the Miracle League, and the Detroit Free Press Marathon. We wish her continued success as she transitions to post-secondary life at the University of Windsor, where she's been accepted to the Behavior, Cognition, and Neuroscience program. The next winner of the Bob and Deborah Little Scholarship is Tina Newland from Kennedy Collegiate Institute. Tina is the epitome of class at Kennedy Collegiate Institute. She is one of the most kind and generous students that Kennedy has had the pleasure of educating. Tina is one of a kind, and there's not enough fantastic words to say about her. She always greets people with a smile and is always willing to lend a hand in whatever is needed around the school. Ms. Newland has exceptional academic record and somehow finds time to be the Deputy Prime Minister of our institution. She balances her education and co-curriculars equally with passion. She leads by example and is involved with anything that makes Kennedy shine. She may be small in stature, but she has one of the biggest hearts around. She does not look for thank yous. She just wants to do what is right. Kennedy will miss Tina and what she has to offer, and we believe that she is very worthy of this award. We wish Tina Newland continued success at the University of Waterloo in the Global Business and Digital Arts program. The next winner of the Little Award is Nita Tesfaye from Walkerville Collegiate Institute. Nita Tesfaye is currently in the process of completing her final year at Walkerville Collegiate Institute. During her time at Walkerville, she has maintained a strong academic achievement and exemplary work habits. She has a tremendous desire and willingness to learn about the world around her. Her teachers would agree that having Nat in their classroom contributes wholeheartedly to an atmosphere of mutual respect and understanding. She is friendly, caring, and always maintains a positive attitude. Nat values and takes pride in her work. She consistently puts time and care into her academics and appreciates the positively accepted teacher feedback to improve her skills and rise to challenges. Nat has also been a member of the community through her volunteer experience and community involvement. She volunteered extensively at summer camps where she moved to a position of leadership and within schools within the international language programs. The students she worked with had a wonderful role model through Nat. Her positive attitude, work ethic, and friendly disposition was often emulated by these children. This school year, she's made a positive impression in the community and confirmed her desire to attend the University of Windsor for business through her experiential learning at an accounting firm. This scholarship has provided an incredible opportunity for Nat, and her gratitude was evident as she cried, sharing the news of their family and 5 siblings. She is a role model for us all. Congratulations, Nat. The next winner of the Little Award is Bhisma Serratus from Westview Freedom Academy. Bhisma Serratus is a student who sets high expectations for herself, but never fails to greet challenges with a smile and dauntless enthusiasm. She is responsible, hardworking, and possesses an excellent work ethic. In the classroom, she has excelled, maintaining honor roll status throughout her time at Westview Freedom Academy. Next year, she is accepted to study biological sciences, her passion, at the University of Windsor. Outside the classroom, she has been involved with many aspects of Westview life. As a member of Student Council, Bhisma has consistently looked to plan events to help improve the morale of the overall school community. She has organized random kind of Actus Weeks activities, Spirit Weeks, game nights, and movie nights. She doesn't hesitate to give her time to ensure all preparatory work is done for those events. Additionally, Bhisma reaches out for opportunities to meet the needs to support Windsor community by inspiring Student Council to organize can drives and sock drives. Proceeds were donated to the Downtown Mission and the Homeless Shelter. If there's a school event, you can count on Bhisma being there, whether it's helping students during the grade 8 night or helping decorate the cafeteria for a junior dance. She's also a dedicated member of the Westview band, tennis team, and badminton team. Bhisma's personal rigor, tireless enthusiasm, and wide range of interests, combined with her sense of social responsibility and sensitivity to others, will lead to the highest level of success in future endeavors. The next Bob and Deborah Little Award winner is Ibrahim Al-Assadi from Vincent Massey Secondary School. Ibrahim is currently in the process of completing his final year at Vincent Massey Secondary School. He's maintained a strong academic average, and his excellent learning skills, initiative, dedication, and work habits have been exemplary. Ibrahim has been involved in several school-based programs related to his future pathway and his love for science. Ibrahim plans to continue his education at the University of Windsor, studying neuroscience. Ibrahim has been a part of Massey's healthcare competition team, Massey Debate Club, and Science Olympiad. He loves to pursue his passion for science and gets involved with clubs that reflect this desire. Through these clubs and schoolwork, Ibrahim shows an initiative and exceptional leadership skills. He is a very dedicated, hardworking individual who works collaboratively with staff and students. Ibrahim not only participates in clubs at Massey, he also volunteers outside the school. He volunteers at the Syrian Community Center, where he started 2 new clubs for children to learn chess and computers. Ibrahim completes all of his tasks and activities with enthusiasm, a sense of purpose, and optimism. We wish Ibrahim continued success in all of his future endeavors. The next winner of the Little Award is Anna Maria Grigisamondinu from Bell River District High School. And Anna Maria, I apologize if I did not pronounce your last name correctly. Bell River District High School student Anna Marie is currently in the process of completing her grade 12 year. Through her time at Bell River, Anna has maintained a strong academic average and been on the honor roll and principal's list of distinction throughout her academic career. Anna has shown excellent learning skills, dedication, excellent work habits, and wonderful school spirit during her years as a Noble. Anna has been involved in the Health and Wellness Specialist High School Major program since it relates to her future as a nurse and her love of the sciences. Anna plans to continue her education at the University of Windsor this fall in the Bachelor of Science in Nursing program. In addition to her schoolwork and home responsibilities, Anna also makes time to be a leader in her church's choir, where she sings and plays the flute. Anna also volunteers at La Charmerière, a local retirement home. Anna participates with the residents in one-on-one activities and is responsible for the tuck shop cart. In addition to volunteering at a retirement home, Anna completed a co-op placement there as well. During this time, Anna learned invaluable lessons about the field of nursing, as well as life lessons such as the importance of empathy and being a positive role model. We wish Anna Marie continued success in all of her endeavors. The next winner of the Bob and Deborah Little Award, the recipient is Justin Shotz from Tecumseh Vista Academy Secondary. Justin is currently in the process of completing his final year at Tecumseh Vista. He has maintained a solid academic average and has worked diligently to overcome his personal challenges. Justin has been involved in several school-based programs related to his future pathway and his love of supporting students with special needs. He worked several semesters in the TVA STEPS program, where he excelled. Justin plans to continue his education at Guelph University, where he plans to attain a teaching degree and eventually hopes to teach students with special needs. Justin's demonstrated tremendous perseverance and a love for serving others in the past year at TVA. He worked collaboratively with the staff in STEPS program and became a real leader when working with students in the program. Justin supported them with great patience and respect, and the students became attached to him. It was through his experience in co-op that he realized that special education would be his post-secondary pathway goal. During the past year, Justin had to navigate major life events and overcame so many personal obstacles. He showed great resilience and persevered to make it through the challenges which he faced. Through it all, Justin never lost hope. He worked hard to keep his marks up, and he continued to focus on accomplishing his goals of attending university. His dedication to overcoming personal challenges and his commitment to achieving his goals are truly commendable. We wish Justin continued success in his future endeavors. And the final recipient of the Bob and Deborah Little Award is Emily Stanley from Essex District High School. As educators, we have the privilege of working with students at various backgrounds, academic interests, and character traits. At times, a student will stand out amongst their peers as truly exceptional. This is the case with Emily Stanley. Emily is currently completing her final year with an overall average of 93%. This principal list status in her final year complements the previous 3 years on the principal's list. While Emily's course selections mostly include science and mathematics, it's important to note that she also excels equally well in her other university-level courses. While maintaining this average, she won the GECDSB Pluralist Writing Contest, which demonstrates her passions for creative arts as well. One of Emily's greatest strengths is her ability to balance her academics while taking on the role of captain on her OFSA volleyball team, working as a peer mentor and tutor after school, being a member of school council where she organized fundraisers, grade 8 night, and many other school events. The above-mentioned attributes will ensure Emily's ability to be successful at the University of Windsor in the Human Kinetics program. It is with much confidence that Emily will pursue and successfully achieve her goal of becoming a physiotherapist. Emily is a conscientious young lady that excels both in academics and athletics. She's a kind person and always sees the positive in everything and everyone. She is well liked by her peers and teachers, and her enthusiasm is contagious. I'm proud to call Emily a Red Raider and wish her continued success in the future. This generous scholarship that the Little family has gifted Emily will ensure her generous and infectious character will come to make a difference to not only herself, but the greater community. What an incredible honor it is to know that Emily Stanley will forever be a Raider, a Red Raider, wherever her path takes her. Congratulations, Emily. You're most deserving of this incredible award because you are incredible. And that is the end of the Little Awards. And once again, thank you, Bob and Deborah, for being here with us. The next award we're going to be presenting is the William Barrett Scholarship. This award is given in the name of Mr. William Barrett. As a student from Windsor studying the engineering program at Queen's University, Bill received the IODE bursary. Now his wish is to support a young person from Windsor to further their educational goal in engineering. And the winner of the award is Zen Nassim from Herman Secondary. We wish to congratulate Zen Nassim as a recipient of the William Barrett Scholarship. Zen is an exceptionally strong academic student who has consistently demonstrated an outstanding commitment to his educational program as well as his extracurricular activities. Zen is currently in the process of completing his final year at WF Herman in the French Immersion program. His academic performance has been outstanding over the last 4 years. He's been a member of Herman's Robotics Club, Math Club, Badminton Team, and Eco Club. He's participated in the University of Windsor Science Olympiad, as well as other programs related to his future pathway and passion for science, math, and engineering. Zen plans to continue his education at the University of Waterloo in the engineering program with a concentration in biomechanics. His goal is to help people with new inventions, especially life-saving ones in the biomedical field. Zen has been a long-standing volunteer at the Windsor Public Library, where he has organized events and science activities for children during their summer and weekend programs. He is a dedicated, hardworking individual who shows strong initiative and exceptional leadership skills in his field of studies. His commitment will no doubt serve him well in his future pathway. Congratulations, Zen. The next award that we're going to be presenting is the Bill Lamb Award. Bill Lamb was born, raised, and educated in Windsor, Ontario. During his 23 years of employment with the Windsor Board of Education, he served as a classroom teacher, assistant coordinator of programs for the gifted and developmentally challenged, program leader for the Community Living Program at Walkerville Secondary School, and a special education services consultant. Bill will always be remembered for his work supporting the needs of students with developmental challenges, both at local and provincial levels. He firmly believed that the goals in education for the developmentally challenged are no different than for any other students. Bill promoted assisting individuals to perform and achieve at the maximum of their ability. This bursary was established for a student who would continue to work with the developmentally challenged and is enrolling in DSW program at a community college. The student must demonstrate good grades, excellent character, and contribute to school community activities. The winner of the Bill Lamb Memorial Bursary is Amber Lynn from Herman Academy Secondary. Congratulations to Amber Lynn. Amber is in her final year at WF Herman. She is a hardworking individual with a strong commitment to her academic goals. Amber plans on continuing her education at St. Clair College in the Developmental Service Worker Program. She enjoys working with children and takes pride in assisting them learn. She has had several volunteer and cooperative education placements in her field of interest and has been a valued assistant at the Ford City Public School and Herman Academy Elementary. She has been an enthusiastic member of the school cheerleading team and an active employee at Taco Bell. Amber is a dedicated student who has maintained strong grades while balancing several other commitments. She perseveres in her goals and will undoubtedly make an excellent developmental services worker. Congratulations. And our next award that we're going to be, there are 6 awards for the W.L. Clark Scholarship and Bursary Fund. So 6 city secondary school students have been awarded bursaries from the W.L. Clark Scholarship and Bursary Fund. It was established in the memory of Williams Longmire Clark. Mr. Clark was the former editor of the Windsor Record, later known as the Windsor Star. He passed away in 1974 and bequeathed a portion of his estate to the Board of Education of the City of Windsor. This year, selection committee has awarded to the following students. The first award went to Mahad El Heyron from Herman Academy Secondary. We're very pleased to congratulate Muhammad as a recipient of the W.L. Clark Bursary. Muhammad is in his final year at Herman. He's a strong academic student who has made great strides since arriving in Canada from Syria in 2014. Like many of our students arriving from war-torn countries, Muhammad has overcome a lot in his young life. He has used these experiences to propel him to want to work hard and to assist others. He plans to continue his education at the University of Windsor, majoring in biochemistry with a view of becoming an orthopedic surgeon in the future. Muhammad has been involved in the University of Windsor Science Olympiad, Science Academy program, and he is assisted with our school's after-school academic support program. He's also been a volunteer at the Syrian Community Center at Windsor, working with young children. He has received honor roll and the Academic Honor of Distinction Awards for our annual Academic Awards celebration. Muhammad is a dedicated young man who is respectful and collaborative. His work ethic will undoubtedly contribute to his success in the future. The second winner of the W.L. Clark is Saleem Sharif from Kennedy Collegiate Institute. Saleem is an excellent student at Kennedy Collegiate and has exhibited continued success in the classroom throughout her 4 years of high school. Saleem is a mature, wonderful young woman who conducts herself with class. She has a superior work ethic and is dedicated to her studies. Saleem is seen helping around the school in various capacities, such as our multicultural night, semi-formal, prom, and Kennedy Carnival. She is easy to work with and very capable of being a good team member. Kennedy would like to wish Saleem much success in the business administrative program at the University of Windsor. Good luck and congratulations. The third recipient of the W.L. Clark Award is Farah Atul from Riverside Secondary School. Farah, a Riverside Secondary School, is dedicated, hardworking individual in mathematics, extracurricular activities, and volunteer endeavors. Farah has contributed to our school over the past few years through several extracurricular activities. She has been a valued member of the girls volleyball team, leading to many victories. This past year, she was a very active member of the Riverside Prom Committee, helping to organize fundraising events and event preparations. Farah has been an ongoing volunteer in several school and community-based programs, such as our Grade 9 Day, Fit Spirit fitness event for girls, cross-country meets, basketball tournaments, and folklore festivals. Farah has accepted and embraced all responsibilities in these roles and has consistently demonstrated initiative and strong commitment. Farah is a very mature and capable young woman who worked collaboratively at her co-op placement with the police staff in the financial and property crime sector at the Windsor Police Station, where she logged in over 200 hours. Next, Farah will continue on her academic path as she plans to attend the University of Windsor in the criminology program. The next W.L. Clark Award winner is Marlene Americo from Riverside Secondary School. Marlene Americo is currently in the process of completing her final year at Riverside Secondary School. Marlene has shown continuous dedication to her studies, earning her multiple academic honor awards. She continually displays a positive attitude and embodies the school's motto, "Rebels are leaders." She has been an active participant in athletics, leadership endeavors, as well as community volunteer work. Marlene has been a member of both the basketball and volleyball teams throughout her high school career, where she demonstrated her commitment to teamwork and determination to succeed. She has seized numerous opportunities to participate in school events such as can drives, elementary shadow days, and grade 8 open houses. Marlene exhibits the volunteer spirit as she contributes to her community by volunteering her time in tutoring and assisting with events through the Caribbean Center. Marlene plans to continue her education at the University of Windsor in the collaborative nursing program, and we wish her continued success in her post-secondary careers. We're looking at recipient number 5 of the W.L. Clark Award is Dakota Friend from Walkerville Collegiate Institute. Dakota Friend is an incredibly hardworking and conscientious student. They are involved in many aspects of the school life beyond the classroom, and they remain committed to being an active member of the class and enhances the learning experience for everyone. Their leadership is demonstrated in classroom and in the wider community. Dakota shares their enthusiasm for learning with their peers and encourages classmates to take part in class discussions by modeling a keen interest and serious preparedness. Their open-mindedness and consideration for others fosters an atmosphere of mutual respect. Dakota's leadership, kindness, and compassion are evident as a supervisor for the yearbook, GSA, and jack.org. Looking to make a difference for others in a positive manner while providing a safe place is what drives Dakota. Within the broader community, Dakota can be found volunteering at the Windsor Pride, at the Windsor Public Library, and at World AIDS Day. The giving spirit with which they conduct themselves daily is impressive and inspirational. Dakota plans to attend St. Clair College in the fall for border services. It is without reservation and confidence that they will find success in their future aspirations. Their attitude, academic achievements, leadership, and community involvement have provided a solid foundation. Great things are in store for Dakota. Congratulations. And the final W.L. Clark Award recipient is Gaeta Boob from Westview Freedom Academy. Gaeta is currently in the process of completing her final year at Westview Freedom Academy. She maintained a strong academic average and excellent learning skills, initiative, and dedication. Gaeta plans to continue her education at the University of Windsor. Gaeta has been involved in a variety of clubs and activities at Westview Freedom Academy. She is dedicated, hardworking, and she works collaboratively with staff and students. When volunteering opportunities arise, Gaeta is the first one to sign up. She proudly promotes Westview at our grade 8 nights and is a wonderful mentor on shadow days. She also volunteered to help set up the multicultural show and was chosen as the master of ceremony for the event. Additionally, Gaeta was selected to join the leadership development program due to her exemplary work ethic, determination, and compassion. Gaeta has continually shown strong initiative and exceptional leadership skills throughout her secondary career. She approaches all tasks and activities with enthusiasm, a sense of purpose, and optimism. We wish Gaeta continued success in all of her future endeavors. Thank you, everyone. And we're going to move to our next award, which is the Junior Achievement Award. There are 2 awards, one for $525 for bursary and another for scholarship. The first award, I should read on this, I'm sorry. These scholarship bursaries are to be awarded to secondary students who are graduating from a secondary school operated in Greater Essex and who are entering university or college. We're pleased to announce that the first recipient is Rogers Kibaki from Vincent Massey High School. Rogers is currently in the process of completing his final year at Vincent Massey. He's maintained a strong academic average and displayed excellent learning skills, initiative, dedication, and work habits. Rogers has been involved in several school-based programs related to his future pathway and his love of science. Rogers plans to continue his education in the University of Windsor, behavior, cognition, and neuroscience. Rogers has been involved at Vincent Massey in multiple activities, including robotics, chess, computer science club, and youth club for change. He is very dedicated, hardworking, individual who works collaboratively with staff and students. Roger shows initiative and exceptional leadership skills. We wish Rogers Kaboji continued success in all of his future endeavors. And the second recipient of the Junior Achievement Award is Grace Johnson from Kingsville District High School. Grace Johnson is currently in the process of completing her final year at Kingsville District High School. She's an exceptional student and is extensively involved in both school and community activities. She's completed over 150 hours of community service during her high school career, all while maintaining part-time employment and competing at various athletics. She achieved the principal's distinction over 90% throughout her high school career. She has been an active participant in the KDHS in many ways, including student parliament and the WE group. Grace has shown dedication to her community over the years by involvement in minor baseball, volunteering with the Knights of Columbus, and by being a group leader in her church. She will be attending Ryerson University in Business Management. Congratulations and good luck to Grace. The next award is the Senior Business Officials Scholarship. In 2002, Junior Achievement, this scholarship is awarded to secondary students who are graduating from a school in Greater Essex and who are attending a university or college. We're pleased to announce that the recipient is Clayton Curtis from General Amherst High School. Clay is currently in the process of completing his final year. Over his 4 years, he's used initiative and drive to excel in his academic studies. Clay is one of those students who succeeds in a variety of subject areas, from math, physics to physical education and communications. Clay plans to continue his education at St. Clair College in the Mechanical Engineering Technology Automotive Product Design program. Through Clay's commitment to being part of the General Amherst School community, he has supported numerous teams and sporting events by volunteering his time with things like running the clock and assisting coaches. Clay brings kindness, a sense of humor, and optimism every day he steps into the school. We wish Clay continued success in all of his future endeavors. And the final award we have is the International Students Scholarship Award from Study Insured. Study Insured by Ingle International Insurance is a trusted medical insurance provider for our international students. Study Insured has generously donated a sum of money to the Greater Essex County District School Board to establish the International Student Scholarship. We're pleased to present this scholarship for the very first time this year. There will be 3 $500 scholarships awarded to international students graduating from a secondary school operated by Greater Essex District School Board who will be attending a university or college in Ontario. We're pleased to announce the recipients of the awards are, first, Emily Choi from Herman Academy Secondary. We're happy to congratulate Emily Choi as a recipient of the International Student Scholarship for the Greater Essex County District School Board. Her time at W.F. Herman Academy Secondary, Emily has consistently demonstrated an exceptional commitment to her educational program, as well as several school and extracurricular-based initiatives. Emily is currently in the process of completing her grade 12 year. She began her journey in the ESL program at Herman after arriving from South Korea in 2018 and quickly demonstrated herself to be a very hardworking, dedicated student. Throughout her high school experience, Emily has been active in our school community. She has been a member of our yearbook committee, International Students Club, and ESL program initiatives. Congratulations, Emily. The second Study Insured International Student Scholarship recipient is Megunzu Lee from Vincent Massey. Legunzu Lee is currently in the process of completing her final year at Vincent Massey. She's maintained a strong academic average and excellent learning skills, initiative, and dedication to her work habits. Megunzo had been involved in several school-based programs related to her future pathway and her love of science. She plans to continue her education at the University of Toronto in applied science. Megunzo is a very dedicated, hardworking individual who works collaboratively with staff and students. She shows strong initiative and exceptional leadership skills. We wish Megunzo Lee continued success in all of her future endeavors. And the final Study Insured International Student Scholarship recipient is Yazdan Niku from Riverside Secondary School. Yazdan is currently completing his final year at Riverside. Yazdan is an extremely independent student who, since arriving in Canada, has immersed himself in the culture of Canadian school system, not only getting involved in the school and the Windsor-Essex community, but also immersing himself in the greater Canadian landscape. Yazdan has maintained an excellent academic record. He has been an active member of the Social Justice Club, the Gay Straight Alliance Club, as well as Riverside's Jack.org, a mental health advocacy chapter. He's taken on leadership roles such as taking charge of the live streaming of the OFSA basketball finals. Yet his biggest accomplishment since arriving in Canada as a volunteer with the Liberal Party was as a volunteer with the Liberal Party in the 2019 federal election campaigns, as this led him all the way to Queen's Park, where he represented the riding of Windsor-Tecumseh at the 2020 Ontario Model Parliament at the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. In addition to these endeavors, he has been actively volunteering in our community since his arrival in January 2019 and has accumulated over 200 hours of community service. We wish him all the best as he continues his academic journey at the University of Windsor, where he will study psychology. And Madam Chair, I just want to say thank you very much to you and the Board of Trustees for allowing me to take the time to celebrate our students' excellence. And finally, I want to thank those who have opted to pay it forward to the future of our community, our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all those who have, just as Superintendent Canty said, to have paid it forward to their to our students and trustees. I think I can speak for all of us when I say how absolutely impressive this is, and that I am inspired, and I think I can speak for all of us that we're incredibly inspired. We do have, right now, it would be great to see all of these families kind of gathered in the boardroom, and it's such a wonderful thing to see. I know we don't see any of that right now, but they are watching. So I want to say thank you very much. And congratulations to both the recipients, to your families, and to everyone watching and celebrating along with us tonight. You can feel free to stay here for your celebrations and join us for the rest of the meeting, or I will invite you at this point. You could take this as an opportunity to virtually stand up and exit the boardroom, and you can shut off the live stream or just leave it on. It might be great party music for you. But congratulations to all of you. But you can feel free to keep celebrating your great successes away from the board meeting. So thank you very much to all of you, and thank you to Superintendent Canty for that presentation. It's so nice to be able to talk about this wonderful news of everything that our students are able to achieve. Very wonderful. Okay, so that leads us on to G2, which is the COVID-19 moving forward presentation. I believe there are several members of our senior team that will be presenting, but am I mistaken? I believe it is Director Kelly that is beginning the presentation.
That is correct. Thank you very much. Good evening. Nice to see people. And congratulations to our student winners. Absolutely excellent and inspiring. Makes me very hopeful. So good evening. Tonight we are going to provide you with an update with respect to moving forward in the context of COVID-19. Since March 13th, the senior team, along with the entire system, has worked to deliver a different kind of program, as well as a plan for re-entry to schools based on many unknowns and an ever-evolving landscape, both from a public health and a ministry context. Tonight, we're going to share some of our go-forward plans and considerations that are and will inform our go-forward. Key elements, I think, of a return to school, in whatever form that takes, involves identifying where students are at in their learning, where they are at with the curriculum, where they are at with their well-being. And with those insights, we will share that knowledge with next year's staff, and we'll plan for the upcoming school year with respect to such gaps. And of course, we're going to monitor that progress. Imperative, I think, in a go forward will be best practices in place for teacher assessment, what that looks like, and engagement of staff in specific transition protocols for sharing information with teachers of the following year, as well as summer and fall professional learning through formal planning for students. The September teaching will, and has always been, included formative assessment by teachers, and that will continue. This information has always informed teacher action and instruction, and the specific details, of course, will be informed by what kind of a learning model we have in September And of course, again, critical to all of this will be the requirements of social distancing, details on teacher and student class ratios, details on limitations, and considerations with respect to transportation. You can move the slide forward. Thank you. You'll see the quote above, and I think it's times like this that challenge us to actually dig deeply and become even more resourceful than we already are. And as noted here in the above quote, we have, and I think will continue to imagine teaching and learning in a slightly different way. We will have to be nimble, fluid, and responsive in many ways. Next slide. Sorry. Everyone knows this is a global pandemic. None of us remain unaffected. Working together, I believe we can rethink and reshape many of our practices, behaviors, and assumptions. At a time like this, I think the important thing, and the most important thing, is really being hopeful, about reminding ourselves of the sense of possibility while also respecting context and differing challenges that our families and students experience. This is a journey, and I want to say that I totally believe in the skills and abilities of our staff to support our students and families as we work together in a slightly new way of doing business. The context is very real. We do have families in poverty, and we continue to reach out with community partners to assist with things like school supplies, hygiene products, and food. I'll give you an example today. Goodfellows represents a huge partnership with us and is always willing to respond. And there are many agencies and groups that we work with. These issues existed beforehand, and they are exacerbated by the COVID-19 context. So we've also had a significant change in teaching and learning environment, and this is not business as usual. As I have noted earlier, we will be adaptive and responsive to the needs of our students and families, whatever that model may be, as we learn and go forward. Next slide. Thank you. Our work and our plan is framed by a number of considerations and commitment. As you can see, we are concerned, of course, with safety for all. We have to have protocols and processes to keep our students, staff, and families safe. We have to have clear communication that is consistent with our students, our families, and staff. That will be critical. We have to know our learner. We have to conduct diagnostic assessments to best respond to their needs. We have to work with our family and community partners. We are smarter, we all know, when we work together. We have to adapt to a new environment. It isn't business as usual, and we need to adapt a whole new set of processes, protocols, and procedures. And of course, all of this within a context of exercising financial, ethical, environmental stewardship that remains part of our strategic plan. So these remain our commitments as we frame our go forward. I'd like to turn it over now to Superintendent Howlett, who will talk about program and curriculum.
Thank you, Madam Director. I have 2 slides to present this evening. If you can move to the next slide. The first slide is really focused on a continuity of learning. And my colleagues are going to share some other opportunities for students. What I'm sharing with you tonight is really based on a program perspective. So one item is when the school closure happened in March, the department gathered together and developed and produced a week at a glance for families. It focused on a structured week plan for families and students to follow in the areas of literacy, mathematics, science, social studies, art, and so on. And we got some really great feedback from parents at that time that they really enjoyed it. So one of the things that we're going to do in terms of a continuity of learning over the summer is we're going to develop a month at a glance at different divisional levels, focused on problem solving, inquiry, literacy, mathematics, science, art, healthy activities, physical activities, also by division, and make them available to our families online. It's something that maybe families might choose to print out and follow throughout the months of July and August with their children if they choose. Also at the March closure time, the program department developed a repository, if you will, of online resources by division for both elementary and secondary students. And we made that available to our families. What we're doing for the preparation of summer is we're updating all of those resources, making sure they have live access during the summer, and we'll be reposting that for our families and students who choose to engage in practice and learning over the summer. I'm really pleased to announce as well that we will be continuing with Camp Wonder. Our Board of Trustees are aware that for almost a decade now, we've offered an amazing Camp Wonder experience, a face-to-face model. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances, we are not permitted to provide a face-to-face model, but we will be offering an online distance learning model that will be 100% synchronous for 2 hours a day for students going into grade 3 to grade 8. We're offering the English model of the regular Camp Wonder. We offer a French model for immersion students through Camp Merveille. We'll offer a version for our FM&I students with Camp Magaze, and we also will be offering specialized programming for our ESL students. Again, this program will be focused primarily on literacy and numeracy. There is some daily physical activity, but it's very focused on literacy and numeracy. I'm also excited to announce that with the up to 1,100 students that could be part of this program, we'll be delivering to their door days before the camp starts all the resources that they need in a sack, ready to go for the 3-week program. Pencils, color pencils, paper, whatever they need. And on top of it, if they don't have access to a computer, we will be providing a laptop with internet access for any of those students who will be participating. As well, we'll also be providing nutritious snacks available for the 3 weeks of the camp experience. I'm also very pleased that we will be conducting research during this time, and the focus of that research will be around the level of engagement during distance learning, as well as information that we learn about removing those barriers and how it helps students in their learning and how it helps them to be engaged in learning. So I'm really excited to share that information in the future. Next slide. The next slide is focused on professional development to support our educators with the possibility of what learning may look like in the fall. Perhaps it may be face-to-face and we walk in and it's business as usual, or it may maintain at a distance, or perhaps it might be a blended model, or we might start one way and have to revert to another. So we need to prepare for every circumstance. So one of the things that we're doing is we are preparing professional development for all our educators before the end of June. The focus of this learning will be on the varied structures of delivery models, as well as the various platforms to support the delivery of those models. And a big focus will be on blended learning. The way things look today, that the possibility of that happening is very strong. So we want to really focus on that with our staff, and how do you deliver a blended learning model that is robust and engaging for all students. So that will happen for all teachers before the end of the year. In addition, we have 2 dedicated days of professional learning in late August. And a big part of this professional learning will be focused on the reentry of students and developing a learning profile. So this is where we will inform staff of the expectation of what will happen for students in the fall. And it's really focused, as Director Kelly spoke about, the importance of assessing students to determine where they're at. We have an array of resources within the district. We have things like the leveled literacy inventory. We have the developmental reading assessment, the DRA. We have Prime. We have Leaps and Bounds, a whole host of resources. If we're face-to-face, we're really good because we have those resources, and we'll be reminding and retraining and training some staff new in it to be able to assess where students are at. An intermediate step that we're taking in case for some reason that there isn't a face-to-face component, we are taking all of those assessments and creating a digital bank of those resources to assist in case we might be virtual for some reason, or we have to revert back to virtual. At that point, we'll also, in that professional development, create a formalized sharing process for our educators. So it would be educator speaking to educator about students moving from one grade to the to the other. And during that time, they will focus on student performance, student skills, students' ability, and their level of engagement during the closure period. So between the assessments and between that face-to-face conversation, if you will, that professional discussion between educator and educator, the teachers will be in a good position to be able to respond to the students. And that's the next step, how they would cluster students and differentiate instruction to best meet their needs, regardless of their level of engagement during the school closure period. Another big focus of that professional development will be focusing teachers on looking at the overall expectations. That should be the focus of their work when they are working with students. It would be impossible to go back and teach all the specific expectations in the curriculum. That would be unreasonable. And that's not what teachers report on when they report on student performance. They report on the overall expectations. It's their thinking skills, it's their communication skills, it's the application of those skills. And as teachers are teaching in the fall, and they may find that students are missing pieces of content area, they will jockey back and circle back, because there is a spiraling in the curriculum to make sure students have that information in moving forward. So it's a delicate process, but we really feel confident that we have a plan in supporting staff with doing that. We're also looking at additional e-resources, things like Table Talk Math and Joli, I Read, a French e-resource. So a whole host of resources that we're looking at to make sure we're ready for the fall in case of anything, regardless of face-to-face, blended, or distance learning. I mentioned to the Board of Trustees in the last presentations, we're providing stream sessions right now of educators speaking to educators about what's worked for individual teachers in engaging students in learning. We have a second round of that being processed right now and will be available to teachers before the end of the year and throughout the summer. In addition, as Director Kelly mentioned, we are offering professional development. We're offering it during the summer, as well as during what would have been our Vision of Practice symposium in late August. Now we're offering it all at a distance, but it will be available, and it's an array of professional development. Many of the sessions are focused on how do you assess students? What is a way that you develop a profile on students, whether it be for reading or mathematics or whatever it might be. A lot of it is also focused on how do you support students in various platforms. And another component is also around how do you differentiate for students. We're also developing plans in terms of possible reconfigurations of the curriculum. And so when I say that, if, for example, we have limitations and students can't partake in physical activity like they would in a normal gym class, then how do we reconfigure the curriculum so we're still offering an HPE experience for students without that experience? If we offer a music program and we can't use brass instruments because it's not safe to do that, or there's not a process in place, or it's said that we can't do it, how do we offer a robust music program without brass instruments? So we're starting to conceptualize, if there are limitations, how do we ensure that curriculum opportunities are still offered in a robust way? We're also going to be collecting kits in the next couple of weeks to refurbish and get them ready for redeployment. What that redeployment will be based on the parameters that are provided by the ministry, and we're awaiting that information. We're updating all documents right now as well with information that may include, blended learning and distance learning. And we're reimagining partnerships with our community partners, like the example, the WSO. They've been an amazing partner during this experience. They've offered these read aloud experiences, just extraordinary. Well, one of our typical experiences is students get to go to the Windsor Symphony. If for some reason we can't gather in that way, how do we leverage our partnership with the Windsor Symphony so that students still garner that experience? And we are also thinking about still preparing offline packages in the event, depending on what's happening globally and locally. Schools may be able to welcome some students, but some parents might be fearful. So we're even preparing for that opportunity if we do need to continue with offline packages. So that's just some of the thinking and action that's going on from a program perspective. And I really want to thank my team for all their work that they put forward. I'd like to pass it on to my colleague, Mr. Canty, to share from a student success perspective.
Thank you, Superintendent Howitt. As with the program, our student success team is supporting both our educators and our students during emergency distance education, with an eye on continuing to provide support through the summer and into the fall. Maintaining contact and engagement with our most vulnerable students has been a priority for our student success team. Our grade 8 teachers are meeting with student success teachers from secondary school, as well as guidance counselors in our 8 to 9 transition meetings. And one of the adaptations we have made in those meetings is we're asking about the challenges and successes with remote learning to ensure that we are prepared to help our students, our grade 8s coming into grade 9, and that they can feel prepared and confident as they do so. We've also been using digital student success team tracking systems in our secondary schools. Through it, we have solicited information from teachers regarding student engagement and we've assigned primary and secondary support staff to each student who was deemed to be at risk. These students have been contacted on an ongoing basis, and members have been providing feedback to the teachers. We continue to track student achievement by this method on a periodic basis and use the data to inform our student success strategies to maximize our resources. Community partners such as the Newcomer Center and United Way's On Track to Success have provided additional support with help hours outside of our traditional school hours to support our students. We have also been providing ongoing training for our teachers to prepare them for what may be in September. An example of this is on your screen. It's the D2L with Dave. Over the past week, we've had hundreds of secondary teachers access volunteer training sessions with Dave Gomes with D2L, with Jason Lynn with Lexia, with Natalie Middleton-Bondi with My Blueprint, and with Mark Bodette with Knowledge, all while still providing synchronous and asynchronous lessons for their students, calling home, providing feedback, and creating individualized programming for our students at various levels. The students are at various ability levels and with various levels of support at home. The final piece on the slide there is the Reaching Ahead program. That's our gap closing summer program for our grade 9s, or our grade 8s that want to get a Reach Ahead credit at summertime. Our literacy consultant, Jay Lynn, reported to me today that we have 210 grade 8 students who have signed up for this year's Reaching Ahead, and we haven't even closed it down yet. So that's at least 6 sections that we're going to be able to run for these kids to prepare them for grade 9. Next slide, please. For students who are currently in grade 9 and 10, we have an enhanced online learning lab where they can take an opportunity to do 2 courses they've already taken in order to improve their understanding of core curriculum. Grade 11 and 12 students will be able to either repeat a course that they've already taken or take a new course. And our guidance counselors are currently counseling students about the various summer school options that will meet their needs. Next slide, please. Speaking of our guidance counselors, we're also counseling graduates to move forward with their next steps. As with the University of Windsor example on the screen, our counselors are sharing information on post-secondary summer programs designed to bridge the learning gaps and orient students to college or university life, and the resources available to them to acclimatize to a brand new learning environment. Our guidance and student success teams are checking in, breaking down intimidating work into manageable bits, reminding students about assessments, and major projects, and motivating them with pep talks and tough love, and connecting what they're doing now to future opportunities. So learning becomes personally meaningful for them, and they're helping their students and families navigate these difficult times. The level of academic, mental, and social supports our students have needed and will continue to need as they make their transitions in September will be sizable, but I'm inspired by the work we're doing in Greater Essex. I'm proud of our students, our staff, our school administration. I'm filled with hope when I see how we are closing out this year and planning for the future. So I'm now happy to pass the mic off to Superintendent Wilcox in special education.
Good evening, everybody. Throughout the school closure period, our special education department has made contact with students with special education needs and their families a priority. And we continue to do this with our administrators as we move through this unprecedented time. I'd like to start off the presentation with some really good news. We have worked very closely with Lexia and have been provided with an extension of our additional licenses up until the end of the month of August, which is great news not only for our students with special education needs, but for all of our students who are using the licenses. Many administrators have shared with me that parents have been very excited to hear about the license extension throughout the summer. And as many of you may remember from previous presentations, Lexia is a research proven literacy education program with built-in diagnostic components that help teachers progress monitor and identify challenges that students may be encountering while developing literacy skills. We continue to support our educational support staff with mandatory PD sessions into the month of June with a focus on autism. And we will be gathering participant feedback on those sessions and asking them what they need moving forward for our PD planning. We value collaboration at our school board, and we've developed some great partnerships. We have partnered with Learning Disability Association Windsor Essex to implement virtual assistive technology training for our students who have C equipment. And this training will continue through the summer months for those students and parent guardians indicating they want to participate. We have also struck up a recent partnership with Autism Ontario, the Windsor branch, where we have some Greater Essex County District School Board support staff members working out of the Autism Ontario offices to help create activity bins for students that are distributed to families in our community. And we are also supporting Autism Ontario through donations of materials that are included in those activity bins. Next slide. We have just finished with a series of best practice PD sessions for our special education teachers, including teachers in RISE, STEPS, and GAINS programs. These workshops all focused on the development of synchronous learning and student engagement. We are working with Amanda Lafrette from the John McGivney Children's Center School Authority, who is developing a webinar on synchronous learning in the GAINS classroom, which will be delivered to our GAINS teachers as part of the Summer Learning Professional Development Series. There will be ongoing opportunities for further special education PD sessions in June, as well as at the Summer Learning and Vision to Practice. When we talk about the need for identifying gaps in learning, we will continue to support the use of diagnostics with our students with special education needs. And I believe it's important to acknowledge that the vast majority of our students with special education needs have individual education plans, also known as IEPs. And those IEPs have specific goals and expectations that really personalize their learning. There's progress monitoring of these goals throughout the year, and the goals are changed as they are achieved. Goals for September are already being determined based on goal achievements met this month, and this is going to really help with continuity of learning. For students in our GAINS, STEPS, and RISE classrooms, the majority have the benefit of having the same teacher over multiple years, allowing that teacher to really get to know them. So many of these students will be returning in the fall to teachers they already know very well and that have established relationships with their families. As we move towards the end of June, our special education coordinators are continuing to hold remote IPRC meetings, IPRC reviews, as well as hundreds of transition meetings for students with special education needs who are coming into our system in the month of September. This past Friday, a memo came out from the Ministry of Education with information regarding funding opportunities for summer programming for students with special education needs, and we are currently in consultation with staff and the ministry to explore what these opportunities will look like. I'm really proud of what we've accomplished in such a short period of time, and I would just like to acknowledge a recent act of kindness. Recently, a parent contacted their son's schools, which is actually my family's schools, to ask about a range for delivery of 150-pound plus standard and stayed with the family, practicing social distancing, of course, to help the JMCC occupational therapist train the parents on the use of the standard over an iPad on the front lawn. We have so many of these great stories, so I just want to take this opportunity to share. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Sharon Pike, our Superintendent of Mental Health.
Thank you, Superintendent Wilcox, and welcome everyone. So we can go to the next slide. This board meeting falls within the week in which we proudly fly our pride flags at each of our schools. And we're really pleased that we are able to fly the flags, even though there are limited personnel at the schools. I'd like to thank our Facility Services Department for their support in putting up and taking down these flags. So while schools typically have individual celebrations, the pandemic has allowed our committee to really think about other ideas to show support. So the inspirational video, which is created by our committee members, but has lots of different people highlighted on it, is displayed on our webpage for everyone to see. And additionally, the publication Stonewall, A Building, an Uprising, a Revolution is read by its author, Rob Saunders, exclusively for GEC students and was distributed to all schools. And so additionally in that, there are questions and resources within the document that will help out for our educators. And we also partner with our Run for Rocky Legacy in the community. And I'd like to give a shout out to them and to our Vice Principal, Beth Adlam, VP at Jack Minor, for her creative, interactive Bitmoji library of picture books. And they are fascinating to see and really easy to access. So I'd like to thank Beth for her work. So our staff are busy assisting students on their caseloads and beginning the necessary transitions. For example, our social work and attendance counselors, they are transitioning to other practitioners if needed and are continuing to respond to students' needs through the ongoing contribution to the websites and to their constant communication with students and their families. Our Change Your Future counselors and our newest pilot position, the African Black Caribbean graduation coach, they have been in contact with their students on their caseload several times a week to support, encourage, motivate, and assist their students. Next slide, please. It's exciting that the summer school for students with mental health issues has been announced for the last 2 weeks in August. This is part of the bundle funding that's shared with special education. So we're really excited about this. This is something new for us. Also, we have wonderful community partners in Windsor-Essex. And I know that Director Kelly has noted the work that we do with Windsor Goodfellows, but we have neighbors, we have great neighbors on various initiatives that are right next door to our board office. And also with the Ontario Student Nutrition Program, we're also talking about programming for the fall and what that's going to look like. And of course, with our United Way for summer lunch distribution. So even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, really restricting the opportunity to come together to learn in person, we've had many different opportunities for staff within the Student Wellbeing Department to meet virtually. Like everyone else, we are being much more comfortable and sophisticated in preparing these presentations. And additionally, we're planning sessions for the system on socio-emotional items, equity inclusion, and safe schools. Next slide, please. And I should have noted at the bottom, there was a nugget, which is new for us. We are conducting our supervised alternative learning meetings virtually or by phone, depending on our family's wishes. So after great consultation, the senior team has crafted a distribution of student personal belongings and collection of textbooks, musical instruments, and library books protocol. It's a mouthful. This particular protocol does not include technology. We are working with our staffs and with our administrators on making sure that we are able to provide these belongings after our administrators' creative planning and implementation. We do have very strict health requirements that need to be upheld by our staff and by our families. So each school has determined their own timeline and has posted it on their website, as well as the usual manner in which they communicate with their communities. We're also developing protocols for the end of school close-ups. So I previously noted that we're having all textbooks and musical instruments and library books and others collected. But there's other things too that we need to do in preparation for summer. So once in the schools, we are developing new protocols to clean, store, collect, and restock these textbooks and musical instruments and library books. However, there's a host of other activities and tasks that are to be completed in the last 4 weeks of school, which are operational and instructional. Now, for example, there is a formalized template that we engage in at the school level when teachers engage in robust learning conversations about their students and their student learning. So this is grade to grade in elementary schools, or in secondary, our staff members have meetings to review students' progress through the student success teams at each school, as well as continuity of curriculum mapping by department heads. So lots of action that's going to be going on in the next 4 weeks. Currently, we are planning overall for the return to school, and specifically within our department and with special education, we are developing a mental health and well-being support plan. So we'll be focusing on the expertise and the experience from our Canadian trauma specialist, Kevin Cameron, and Ontario School Mental Health, which is the provincial organization supporting our mental health leads. Lots going on. I'm passing it along now to Superintendent Chris Mills, who's our next presenter.
Good evening, everyone. The IT department continues to work very hard to ensure the best possible environment for distance learning. Although we have wrapped up our formal phases of technology distribution, we continue to support our families where needed. We are very proud of the work done by our team and also our school administrators to distribute to all of our students, but in particular to our frontline workers. In one particular case I'd like to highlight, we were able to provide a mother with an iPad for her son because being a frontline worker, she had to go into isolation and her son had to stay with family. This happened rather quickly and the mother did not know what she was going to do, so we hand delivered the device so her son could continue his learning. These are the efforts that we're so very proud of from our staff. We are also very happy to announce that we will be allowing all students who received a device to keep those devices over the summer. In some cases, we will be switching out the device to an LTE-enabled device to assist those families with Wi-Fi concerns. Formal communication will be going out in the next few days about this. We continue to work closely with the program department to continue to support the professional development needs of our staff. We've had consultants join us in principal and vice principal meetings to share valuable information about the platforms and programs that we support so they can bring this valuable information back to their staffs. This is on top of the information Superintendent Howard and Superintendent Candy already shared tonight about PD opportunities. IT has also had to ensure that devices that staff and our special needs students have continue to work over the summer. This requires sometimes some updating and or switching out devices to ensure that the proper security and programming is on these machines. We continue to vet apps and programs that have been requested by staff. This ensures that these programs meet our privacy standards and also support high teaching and learning standards. Preparation and imaging of devices for the summer learning programs has already begun. We know that ensuring students have access to devices immediately is important to the success of our students in these programs. You heard about all those great programs from Superintendent Howitt tonight, and we'll be ready for those students. We implemented a new staffing tool for the elementary staffing process. This meant new procedures for principals and our staff. Teachers were allowed to post for positions electronically this year, and principals and vice principals are able to view the candidates for their positions online. We also implemented a new staffing software for principals this year, and this is for submitting their enrollment numbers and for also organizing their school through the staff allocation. This required development, support, and PD from our IT department, and we continue to work through this staffing process now. One of the biggest changes that we face in the IT department is the implementation of our new student information program. We continue our work in replacing Trevlac with the system called Aspen. You've heard of this before. This involves professional development for a number of groups across the system, and we are well underway with this virtually. We will be going live in August with this very significant change. We are also in the process of purchasing of new devices for September startup. We know that we will have to replace some of the devices that have been loaned out and through our regular cycle, and we'll be prepared if further needs should arise. IT is also examining paper forms that we use during school startup. For example, our student verification forms that confirms all of our family's vital information, and our out-of-district application forms, and looking at making these forms electronic for September. The IT department continues to be forward-thinking and plan for the possibilities that exist as we navigate through this pandemic. And now I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Armstrong, who will continue our presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Next slide, please. From a student transportation perspective, transportation has begun planning the consortium's routing for the 2020-21 school year, and will be seeking guidance from the ministry and the local public health unit regarding physical distancing requirements that may be needed. Transportation also has a seat on the province's Return to Work working group, and the general manager of WESTS receives weekly updates. Further Transportation has been forecasting the PPE requirements that bus operators may require once school returns in the fall. The consortium's requirements for the PPE are included in weekly reporting that the board submits to the ministry. Transportation is also exploring all avenues for bus sharing, as bus production has been stalled as a result of the province's emergency order. Additionally, transportation continues to meet regularly with the bus operators, and they are addressing issues related to licensing of new bus drivers given the closure of Service Canada offices. Next slide, please. With respect to facility services, risk assessments are being prepared by the board for all board sites as per provincial guidelines. From these risk assessments, reentry plans will be developed. These reentry plans will provide operational details, they will outline the requirements for PPE, and they will reflect reconfiguration requirements that must be implemented before occupancy. With respect to the reconfiguration of spaces, that, as mentioned, that will be based on reentry plans, and it may include reorganization of classrooms to ensure physical distancing. For example, potentially marking grid patterns on the floor to separate students, wayfinding signage and floor markings, as well as installation of hand sanitizer stations and possibly plexiglass partitions. Custodial workloads and work tasks will be revised to include regular sanitization of high-touch surfaces, as recommended by the local public health unit, and more thorough sanitization of all rooms daily after school use. Staff training is a very important element, and that will be developed as part of the reopening plan, and it will be completed by all staff before re-entry into schools. Posters have been posted near every main office, and other strategic locations will be identified. These posters are prepared in conjunction with the local public health authority. Additionally, we're fortunate that our board's health and safety officer is a member of the OASBO Health and Safety Subcommittee that has been tasked to provide input to the school reopening provincial work group. In addition, as mentioned previously, the board prepares weekly ministry reporting of inventories of our PPE and disinfectant supplies. This includes our forecasted needs, current quantities on hand, and any supply backlogs. Next slide. From a financial services perspective, we have started procurement activities related to hand sanitizer, masks, nitrile gloves, and disinfectants in preparation for return to work for all groups. This is being done in collaboration with the Health and Safety Department, which further collaborates with the local public health unit. Additionally, we are developing a centralized storage of all PPE supplies and an appropriate distribution process for our schools. And I would like to turn it over now to Director Kelly.
Thank you. Obviously, our communication needs to come in various forms and through many different mediums so that we are targeting our diverse community. I think our parents survey told us that various forms of communication are preferred by parents. EDSB, for example, was popular, and a number of them also wanted printed packages, and we've responded to that. So we will need to continue to listen to what we are being told by our community. We will also have to have a very succinct plan in terms of communicating with our community about the changes, as we know those are evolving. So the sites and the forums that are listed on the slide are our methods of communication to our communities. Next slide. As our work continues, we remain guided by these commitments. While we are building the plane while it is flying in lots of ways, we remained grounded in safety, in the assessment of student needs, in the power of partnerships, in the commitment to an adaptation to a new learning environment, and through demonstrating good stewardship and clear communication. Next slide. Gratitude to our staff. There are many things that we've seen through the digital learning context, but there are many things that we actually haven't seen, or some of us haven't seen. And I'd like to make an apparent the enormous care taken by our students during this time to show kindness For example, today I saw something that Superintendent Canty shared with me about what the IB students are doing to reach out to their community in terms of sharing of food and making kind gestures to our seniors. We've also had students, and when we talk about engagement, we know that some of our students aren't engaged. We do acknowledge that. And I just wanted to point out an example of a family that has chosen not to engage and have indicated that to the principal. What they have chosen to do is to volunteer to sew masks and scrub caps for frontline workers. And while this is not maybe the choice that we all make, they certainly are doing amazing things, and the learning there would, of course, be great. The staff, I think, at Greater Essex, too, have not only taught many academic lessons over the last few months, they have modeled great integrity, care, and human spirit. I think they've also demonstrated great ingenuity and innovation, and I would like to say a personal thank you to staff who have risen in this context. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge educators who have created personal connections with students by doing things like personalized socially distant visits, maybe dressed as a character or as Flat Stanley, or that they've delivered food and they've supported families, they've made referrals and helped them out. I'm actually, it actually makes you kind of emotional when you see the extra gestures that people have done to lift our students and to support our families. And I'm just going to share a couple of examples. In one of our schools, there was a family, again, a family not particularly engaged, and due to personal circumstances, the family was contacted on a weekly basis, even though they indicated that they really couldn't engage at the time. It's a single parent who works midnights with two students in kindergarten and another in intermediate. And it was a tough time getting their children engaged in the learning, and she works and she has to sleep. And the mother works in the healthcare profession and feared, of course, that COVID might be an issue. One of the children became ill, and the mother didn't have the basic tools to monitor that. Student had a high fever and nausea and was turned away from the hospital and told to return only if there were breathing issues. The mother had tried to get a thermometer, couldn't find one anywhere, but the administration of the school searched dozens of stores with no success. They ordered one on Amazon and had it delivered to them home. The mother was told that the school, she can't engage in this time. It was too difficult for her, but she certainly loved that gesture. Another story that I thought would be interesting to share is one school that, again, trying to engage a family, but having no success, and they would set times and with the mom for after school hours to connect. Mom had recently got a job and they had set up a predetermined time to connect, but they didn't have any luck with that. And so the mom reached out on the long weekend to the teacher and the child youth worker to inform that the daycare provider she was using had COVID and that they had no money or food, and they all had to self-isolate, and mom had just got a job. So they got groceries and took them to the family, and then they put a mom in touch with a food bank, but then they found out that the food bank had no food. And so the next Thursday, I'm not saying teachers should do this, but the teacher actually transferred money to the family to buy groceries, and then the mom took pictures and sent the e-transfer to the teacher. So again, I think that's a very important kinds of examples of the extra above and beyond. I could say many, many more. I know a group of teachers also set up a study hall because they really noticed a dip in engagement and want students to remain engaged during the last month of school. And I think the words they used are kind of typical of what staff are doing right now. They said they have to keep reinventing themselves to keep students engaged. And they don't want their names mentioned, but they certainly are all trying to do good things for kids. So I'm just very proud to lead a group of caring educators, and I want to thank our teachers, our support staff, our principals for their responsive, positive, and their hopeful leadership, which is so important. We continue to respond, albeit in a fluid and nimble manner, to the needs and challenges that lie ahead, and we have look forward to continuing to learn and grow as an organization. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Wow. Thank you very much. I'm feeling a little like emotional over those testimonials. Thank you very much for sharing those. I'll pull myself together. So I need to open it up to questions that trustees may have. And I thank trustees and I thank everyone for allowing us to go over the 15-minute mark on our presentation. I think it was very important to do that. So I thank everybody for their patience in that. I do have a lineup of questions. I'm beginning with Trustee Cook.
Thank you. And thank you. And I appreciate your presentation. But I still believe we need to get specifics, targets, robust, and a focused plan for when the kids return in the fall, whatever that looks like. The province will have a universal plan, regarding what the classrooms will look like, etc., but won't address local struggles. We need to be focused, robust, and specific. And that's why I'm going to be introducing a motion tonight. My question will be coming in just a minute. Educators are facing many challenges, but I believe the biggest challenge is how to support students who are already struggling academically. Distance learning can be difficult for many children, but students living in poverty, have special needs, or in special education face unique challenges. Distance learning is widening learning gaps and deepening inequalities between students. The learning loss continues to increase, and the most impacted are our marginalized and disadvantaged students. How are the widening learning gaps being addressed, and what is the plan?
I can certainly start us off. I'm sure the other superintendents, is that okay? Trustee Higginson, is that all right?
Go ahead, Director Kelly, yes.
Okay, yes. I think we outlined a number of those things. Obviously, there are definitely challenges. We are very well aware that the students, and again, we'll be constantly developing plans. As you indicated, we do really have to understand where those students are at. What are those learning gaps? We have assessment tools as outlined by Superintendent Howitt. We do have to ensure that they have the technology. We do have to find different ways to communicate with them. We do need to continue to partner with organizations around things like food, personal hygiene, all of those kinds of things. I agree, those are struggles that we really have to get at. Is distance learning always, the best method for everyone? Agreed. Look at the impact a teacher can have in the classroom. Look at the impact that they can have in terms of that personal connection. We will find ways. We will certainly continue to look at ways to do that. That is our commitment. And I don't know if any one of the other superintendents want to respond, but again, I know that we all have huge care for our students, and they're all in very different situations. And I think a couple of the examples that I shared, we have to recognize that families, their primary struggle sometimes is putting food on the table, like the example that I gave of one parent, and I'm sure there are many more. So we have to find ways to support, help, work with community agencies to continue that, targeting those things. But again, we can't do that alone. We are a school system. We can do our best. We have our, lots of support staff to be able to reach out, social workers and such, but we will have to work with other partners to be able to do that, and we will continue to plan for that. I don't know if other superintendents want to respond to that.
May I share, Director Kelly or Madam Chair, may I add to that?
Absolutely, Superintendent Howitt, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And I really do also appreciate the words from Trustee Cook in that we share the same sentiments and that we worry about our students. That's what keeps us up at night. Nothing replaces the face-to-face situation. Nothing replaces the face-to-face learning opportunity for kids, and teachers providing that direct, warm environment with personalized instruction and learning. This is a circumstance that we're dealing with right now. It may continue in the fall. I do believe the plan that we do have in place around determining where the students are at through our assessment processes and making that a priority and providing the professional development to our staff and the direction around that will help to determine where students are at, regardless of their level of engagement during the closure period. We do need a benchmark, and we need to gather that benchmark in the fall with the students upon reentry, whatever that reentry looks like. You can offer a distance learning program that is robust, and that's part of the professional development that we'll be offering our teachers. We know that they've made an incredible effort to date. We're continuing to support them in their journey of learning and implementing a robust program. And as the director mentioned, and as also alluded to by my colleagues, that it takes a village to do this work. The learning is one component, but someone mentioned to me Maslow before Bloom, right? We need to consider those hierarchy of needs of students and families in this process before we can really address those academic needs. And they do need to be addressed, but it's a community effort to do it. That's just my perspective that I just wanted to add, and thank you for the opportunity to do that.
Madam Chair, can I have a supplemental?
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent. I'll go ahead with the supplemental, Trustee Cook, and then I'll move down to Trustee Sipkar. So supplemental from Trustee Cook.
Thank you. Thank you for your response. My other concern is that even some of the, some of these marginalized children, families, they can get the technology or have it. One computer per family. Some of these families have 4 or 5 kids. It's extremely, extremely difficult for them. It's not just doing the work. It's these children, the students, having the support from their parents, guardians, to help them do the work, having the proper environment in their home to be able to concentrate. The other thing is the kids with special needs, kids in special education, kids that struggle with ADHD, kids that are on the spectrum. I mean, there's so many issues going on, and I know it's overwhelming for everybody. Kids. I read a story the other day about this student who has autism and was making so much progress, but because of the lack of socialization, has really, really taking steps back. There are going to be so many things that we need to deal with. I just would like to see a more specific plan. I respect what you presented tonight. My last question, and I'm sorry, is that you mentioned family and community partnerships. I'm wondering if to help kids in poverty, if you've thought about working with United Way, Prosper Us, and seeing what they can do to help and make things, whatever resources they might have or connections they have. I'm just wondering if that's an option.
Could I answer that, Trustee Higginson? Yes, yeah. Thank you, Trustee Cook. I agree. We do work with United Way quite closely. In fact, as I think Superintendent Howitt told me today about an example of a lunch program that we're working with United Way on. And Prosperous, I do sit on the Leadership Council, and they are, of course, always doing great things for our community and are looking forward to a plan wherein that they could get community engagement, particularly in those communities that are marginalized, and are trying to understand the stories of those communities. I've been very moved by the work that they are doing with the communities to actually find out the voices of those who experience it. So yes, we do work with United Way, and there are many other examples. I know that they have assisted us in other things, and perhaps the other superintendents, perhaps Superintendent Pike or Superintendent Howe, could speak to that. And of course, there are other partners other than United Way as well. I'd like to acknowledge.
So if I could just add to that, specifically around the summer learning Camp Wonder experience, and the research that we'll be doing is exactly to your point, Trustee Cook, is about removing those barriers. So the example of delivering those resources to the door of those students who do not have those resources readily on hand. So we're removing that barrier. We're working with United Way, who has been a fantastic partner. And I know my colleague, Superintendent Pike, can add more to this, but they are those, they're packages called like HelloFresh packages that will offer like recipes and resources to make those recipes with the family, which is an added learning experience for the family as well. They're providing those opportunities to the community. We're working out the details of that. They have helped us with knapsacks of resources. So again, part of the research in doing this work in the summer in code, and the ministry has indicated an interest of the work that we're doing, is what do we need to do to remove those barriers for those marginalized students to make it work regardless of the situation. So although it's been challenging, the exciting part is we're going to engage in this work during the summer to help uncover more of those opportunities. And here's the other piece, is we've asked our teachers to help us around the PD plan. And we thought what would be best is to go to those teachers in the system. And we've had a large number say that they want to help a cross section of the system to tell us what's worked for them with their students. So we're going to take all of that information and then share it with everyone so that we can best capture more and more students, regardless of the circumstances that they're faced with.
And this is Superintendent Pike, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Trustee Hugson, thank you. Just about the United Way program, always a great partner for us, that's for sure. And they will be providing non-perishable children's snack items and fresh fruits and vegetables this summer. A little bit different than what they've done in the past, but they want to respond to what people are requiring and need. And they also do provide, as Superintendent Howard said, a backpack filled with school supplies and provide books and other activities for students to take home with them this summer. So lots of really good community effort in terms of helping and supporting our families.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Pike. Okay, so I'm moving on to Trustee Sipcar has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to say thank you to the entire senior team for this presentation. I know that I found it very, very helpful. You kind of put the flesh on the bones, so to speak, of a lot of questions and things that we know that are happening but don't have a full picture of. So I want to say thank you for that. My first question will be around professional development for teachers. So we know that our teachers are the center of a good classroom, and that's where a lot of the good learning happens, when we do have passionate and engaged teachers who just are able to connect with students. And obviously that is a challenge with distance learning. And I saw the slide that listed all of the professional development for teachers, and I think that it only said there were 2 days. And I'm genuinely just wondering if we feel that this is enough. It's not meant to be a criticism, but it's more so to acknowledge that since the communication medium has changed so drastically, I want to ensure that teachers have all the tools and resources to really be able to connect with students. And from anecdotal hearsay, and also even from this presentation, it seems like there's a lot of variation across the board, at different schools doing different things with synchronous learning, how many times per week, all those things. And so my question is, if we are to reopen schools with even a blended learning, kind of model at this point, or complete distance learning, will those 2 PD days really be enough? And I'm just kind of asking if we're allocating the proper resources to making sure that we have consistent expectations for teachers if and when we hopefully we're all seeing each other, and that there is something that we don't have to account for. But this is something I feel like we really need to account for, is if it's distance learning or blended learning, and just wondering if teachers have the proper professional development to be able to handle these challenges as well.
For you, Madam Chair, Director Kelly. Yeah, thank you. Great question. Those are the very questions we're asking ourselves. How can we best see where the needs are? And I'm going to ask Superintendent Howard to speak about that, because I think she told me today that there was a survey going out to find out what the needs were for professional development. I also know we do have the days plan, and of course we may look at expanding that, but I do believe that we did a little survey to find out to what areas people felt they needed more refinement in terms of more professional development. So Superintendent, how could you speak to that? And I don't know if Superintendent Mills and or Superintendent Canty wanted to as well.
Certainly. So the director is correct. We did put out a survey to educators in the system and to administrators, seeking their input as to nuggets of information of things that have worked so far with distance learning. And I mean, nobody has done this. They have done this work for the last 3 months. And so we thought it was important to hear their voice. Our greatest resource in this district is our human capital. and they're doing the work. So we need to look to them for input about the devices in terms of planning for that professional development. And a great cross-section in a very short period of time responded immediately to that question, which is great because that's saying that our educators and our leaders want to help in developing what it looks like because they want it to be right. So that's fantastic. In terms of the amount of time, we do have dedicated time in the last week of school. Now, remember, we need to keep teachers focused on providing learning to students and maximizing that leverage, that learning time for them. We do have time before the end of the year in terms of the last week of school, and then those 2 dedicated days right before the start of the year. On top of that, there's a whole array of opportunities where teachers can pop in and out of learning at a distance. They can do it from the comfort of their backyard or wherever they're going to be to engage in learning. And here's what I do know. Teachers want to do the right thing. And we will be clearly articulating to our educators what that expectation is moving forward. And with that direct articulation to our staff, they will rise. I have no doubt about that. I know the senior team believes that as well, and that comes from our director as well. Staff are doing good work with that additional support of the dedicated time that we have, as well as choice time for teachers, knowing that they may arrive to something different in the fall. They will be ready. There won't be any excuse at that time. You know, in March, it was unexpected and people are forgiving. In September, if we're in that circumstance, people won't be. Staff know that, and they want to do the right thing. So we're keeping a balance, Trustee Sipkar, in terms of dedicated time while keeping the focus still on student learning until the end of the year. So that's the best model that we have planned to date.
Trustee Sipkar, did you have a supplemental?
I do, thank you. Through you, Director Kelly, I don't know if any other superintendents did want to jump in there, but I just wanted to ask on that then, will there be consistent expectations about what that model will look like? So, you know, let's say, for example, I'll use my daughter. She'll be in SK. She'll have to connect with her teachers twice a week, and that teacher will be properly prepared for those 2, let's say, you know, interactions. Or are we looking at kind of a variation of models at this point? I know it's hard to tell, but I'm just wondering if that professional development will support those consistent expectations.
I believe that the professional development will support those consistent expectations. Of course, we don't know whether we'd be going to school every other day. You know, there's a whole bunch of unknowns, but as we become better at this, I think the consistency will be very important, and certainly we will work towards that. I think that's a very important question. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chime in, Madam Chair? It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Superintendent Canty, go ahead.
Just one of the things that, and I agree with everything that Dr. Howard said about, you know, we weren't ready, you know, March 13th or April 6th, whenever it was. And a lot of teachers had to adjust. And Superintendent Mills was saying a couple of days ago, the learning curve for teachers, I mean, it's the silver lining in all of this, and that we will be better prepared in September. But the other thing I just wanted to add was not only are we having voluntary training sessions now in secondary, it's in D2L, and hundreds of teachers are showing up for this, but also our entire summer school program in secondary is on D2L. And so we're heading towards a critical mass of capacity with our teaching staff. And I believe the reason, like Dr. Howard said, I believe the reason is teachers do want to do best by their kids, and they realize that they have to move now. Moving to D2L for September, the opportunities will be there during the summer for them to get that training if they're not teaching summer school. So I'm really optimistic about you know, what can happen in September.
If I could, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
I think Superintendent Wilcox would like to share too, so he has some thoughts.
Thank you, Director Kelly, through you, Madam Chair. I really agree with what Superintendent Howard said. Our staff is our greatest human capital. And although we're waiting for ministry direction moving forward, just to respond to Trustee Sipkar, who, by the way, Trustee Sipkar, I really want to thank you for wanting to support our teachers. I think that's wonderful. I just want to let you know, although I talked about opportunities for our special education teachers as part of summer learning and vision to practice, we've already had numerous learning sessions for our RISE teachers, our LST teachers, our STEP teachers, our GAINS teachers, and they were best practices. So what we did was identify some of our teachers with outstanding practices in those areas, and they have been leading webinars for teachers in synchronous learning in those areas. So we already have that going on. We're already moving into the second. The feedback from participants is guiding us with what the next round of PD sessions for those teachers are going to be. So we have a lot going on for our special education teachers.
Thank you very much to that senior leadership that chimed in on that. I appreciate that. Trustee Hatfield, I have you up next.
Okay, thank you. I heard it said recently, I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard it was said this way, something like students are where they should be during this pandemic, and they shouldn't be judged as being behind or ahead, but that the main thing is that they're safe at home with their parents, away from the threat of this horrible disease. And I did appreciate the comment from Superintendent Howard about learning is just one component of everything that's going on right now in everyone's life. The impact of job losses, the stress on the parents for providing food, a roof over everybody's head, and now taking on the responsibility of education for their children. So I just appreciate everything that we heard in the report 2 weeks ago about our response to COVID-19 and the report that we just had about moving forward in this environment. There are so many examples of how our staff, as always, go above and beyond. And I can't thank you enough for that. But I don't have an expectation that September for the next school year is going to be business as usual. There's no way that that can happen. From everything I've heard, there's so much that has to be done to even physically have children back into our school buildings. So, you know, maybe I'm not seeing this the same way as everybody else, but I can see a lot going on to try to meet the possibility that we might be back into school in September. And that's just a huge undertaking, as this report has shown us. So I don't have the expectation that the next school year is going to be the same. We heard in the report tonight that some students haven't engaged at all during the past few months in terms of continuing their learning. And there was mention in the report that our social workers are reaching out to them. And that's an area that I hadn't even thought of. I just assumed that everybody had connected and everybody was doing some level of learning. So I would like to ask, I mean, it's getting late, it's June already, but what happens with students that haven't engaged at all in any type of learning during the past few months?
It's Director Kelly, through you, Madam Chair. I think the other superintendents can also answer this question. We always do have students that don't engage. Of course, this is exacerbated, and we know that. The social workers often have that responsibility in terms of the attendance counseling under the Education Act, and so that will continue. The number of reach outs and the ways that we try to reach out will continue. It is our job to try to get students engaging. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything else to that, but we will find every way. I mean, we know that there's a challenge here with social distancing and with, you know, not being able to sometimes physically do the things we want to do. But we have to work too with organizations like the CAS in terms of those kinds of responses as well, which is not always pleasant, but it is a responsibility to go to school. We will continue those efforts. Perhaps Superintendent Pike would like to reply, or someone else if they have something else to add.
I would. It's Superintendent Pike.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we had the number of students who have not been engaging doesn't necessarily mean that they'd be automatically referred to social work, because some of them just decided they don't want to engage. So it could be students, it could be parents, it could be just a lot of different reasons of why families don't want to engage. The ones, however, that we've absolutely not heard from, we don't know we haven't heard anything from anyone, even their emergency contacts, then we have a very robust process and protocol that we follow in order to get some sort of contact for those particular students. So in the process of teachers calling and reaching out through EDSB, doing all those kinds of reach outs, and then goes to the administrators to do the same thing, go to emergency contacts, maybe contact some social agencies, just depending on what the situation is. Then it would be referred to our social work and attendance counselors. And from there, they go and try again to talk through calls, through letters, trying to get some sort of engagement. And then from that, we have other processes where, as Director Kelly had noted, that we reach out to other agencies. I'm pleased to say that that number is not large at all. So that's really encouraging for us, because when we first did the non-engagement numbers, it was like, whoa, that's a little bit higher than we thought, but then there was contact. So we were okay and we knew why they weren't engaging. And it got to the point where sometimes people keep calling, the principals keep calling and asking, how can we support you? Would you like to have the education a different way? All sorts of different kinds of engagement strategies that they're working with the families.
Okay, that's good. And if I could just do supplemental to my question, because it all kind of wraps together. I was really happy to see the number of things that were explained to us under student success that are still going on, which is very important. The one thing that kind of fell off because of the situation is for our new students coming in, our new kindergarten students. The whole orientation that had been planned for them, and I don't know what's being done to bring them into the system for September.
Agree, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I know that Superintendent Howe will want to respond to this question, because I know that's been a concern for her, and I know there has been discussion about that. So I look to Dr. Howe to explain.
Great.
Thank you. And through the chair, we're really excited that we are offering an opportunity through our Welcome to Kindergarten program. As much as we want to do it face-to-face, we're limited right now. So packages are actually presently being redelivered back to the board office, being rebundled, and will be delivered through bus drivers to each of our new registered families for our youngest learners to help them engage in learning over the summer. In those packages are actual hands-on resources and directions to links of additional resources that could provide learning opportunities for our youngest learners during the summer. As well, we've asked all of our early years teams, our kindergarten teams, to reach out to our newly registered families to make connections about those packages. So although it's not happening face-to-face, it's still happening in the best version that we can create under these circumstances.
Is there any thought to something in September where they can come in gradually, or are they just expected at school the first day for the kindergarten students?
So again, that will depend on direction from the ministry as to whatever guidelines there are. Typically in any year, there's a delayed entry for our youngest learners. It's about a week after. And educators engage in interviews with families to garner better profiles on the students as they enter. So depending on what those parameters are by the ministry, and if we are allowed to have students in schools, we'll create opportunities where the students and their families will have some entry into the school in acclimatizing them and welcoming them to the school environment. Again, we need further guidelines from the ministry before we can create that possibility. But I value your question on that, because it's that first impression of our relationship that's going to happen for the next, 10 years in an elementary school and beyond. That's so important in that partnership in developing and supporting that child in their overall learning. So I do appreciate that question, and we will certainly look to that possibility pending, further direction that we have about parameters that we have to deal with.
Well, I was pretty sure that you would have thought about it, but it's just such an important part of what we do really well in terms of welcoming the kindergarten kids to our schools. So I was just kind of concerned about how we were going to handle that, but you've answered that very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Moving forward, we do have quite a few questions, so if trustees could keep it to one question and one supplemental, that'd be great. We can move around to a second set of questions, but right now we have Trustee Olmsted.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you for the thorough presentation. I literally had a page of questions here, but so many were answered by the information that has been given so far to my fellow trustees and by the information provided by the senior team's presentation. But I still have questions. I'll limit this one just to one. Last meeting, due to connection issues, I could not really participate in the meeting. I couldn't hear what was going on. I didn't know if you were hearing me when I was speaking. I literally felt like I was a lone wolf here. I missed about 50% of the meeting. And I know several Greater Essex County's families and students, through no fault of their own, aside from geography, are facing these kind of issues every day. They have no or very limited internet to be able to really support the technology that they need to be engaged learners. And I know Superintendent Mills did mention this very briefly in the presentation, but I was wondering if you could expand or explain what is being done or what can be done, especially looking forward to September with this blended kind of learning or perhaps remote learning still ongoing, to provide equitable learning for as many students as possible within our board. And do you have any idea how many students within the board actually do not have access to internet or would need this kind of a boost to be able to equitably participate in their learning?
Madam Chair, I think Superintendent Mills can answer that question.
Thank you.
Sure, happy to answer that question. One of the things that we did when this first started, we partnered with Cogeco to help those families that were in need for Wi-Fi. So when families reached out, one of the things that they identified is if they had Wi-Fi in the home or access to internet. And so in certain cases, we were able to assist those families with the partnership that we had with Cogeco. We'll continue to investigate that partnership moving into September. What we're doing right now, though, is we're looking at LTE-enabled devices. We've made a purchase of more of those types of devices so that they're easily accessible for some of our families that are in hard-to-serve areas. And that's the way that we've been assisting families that have reached out for that. So if there are families that are, looking for those devices, what I would encourage them to do is reach out to the school principal, and that's something that we could investigate with them.
Thank you. Do you have any idea of the number of students that we're talking about? Like, is it in the hundreds? Like, I just know in my area, for instance, many students, even just based on where they live, have access to dial-up or just slightly better speeds than dial-up. High-speed internet does not exist in many of the rural areas. So I was just wondering, do we have really an idea of how many students this might entail?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What we were doing is we looked at about a couple hundred families that we were supporting this way, but those were the families that identified, and so we worked with all of those families. As far as those that have not come forward, obviously I wouldn't have a number for that, but any of those families that came forward, we tried to work with to provide them with either that Cogeco service or an LTE device.
And LTE is just a device that has built-in internet, just to clarify in case someone does not know?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I do have Trustee Cheen with one question, and then Trustee Cheen, I do see that you have a second question, but I'll move you to the end of the queue once everybody's asked their first question. So Trustee Cheen, go ahead with your first question.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, I want to show my appreciation for all the staffs and senior administrations regarding their, hard working, good, excellent jobs. And I really appreciate and I know how hard you are working. And please forgive me if I keep on give you some pressure, because I really think we should, put the interest of the students first. That's why please forgive me to give you the pressure. And I see your presentation that you mentioned that in our framework, our commitments, clear communication is the most important. Clear, consistent communication with students, families, and staff is critical. And also, just now the superintendent said there is not a full replacement of face-to-face teaching circumstance, but online. I think we are finding the best version that we can create. So my question is regarding the online live teaching, real-time live teaching, synchronous teaching, and obviously, and if we cannot see each other on site, we can see online, and we can respond, communicate quickly. And I think it's really a good way for both sides, for the teachers to give instructions and response to the students, and for the students to ask questions. So I see no point why this kind of teaching method cannot be, be pushed to the teachers. And I would like to share a story. My science teacher makes me feel really, I really respect the staffs here. They are high quality because last Friday I mentioned to her that I want the live teaching. And she, at the beginning, she kind of hesitated, but she, after knowing my purpose and request, she said she would do that this Monday. So she did that, and I thought because of the teams, the difficulty of using the software, I thought maybe my son was the only student in this, the first time practice. But to my astonishment, and at 10 o'clock, more than half of the students waiting there, excitedly talking with the teachers and respond. They had really a good time 1 hour teaching. So, and the teacher also feels very good. She arranged another time tomorrow, kind of wants to continue doing this. So I really think this is really a good way. So I think it's necessary and doable, and for both students and even for their mental health. They are too lonely, at home. They need to respond with their, friends and with the teachers. So that's why I ask why we couldn't make a standard requirement to push all the teachers to have online teaching practice. And I think it's learning by doing, experience. They need to accumulate the experience of synchronous teaching to prepare for further. If in September serious pandemic happened, we have to, have large scale those kind of online teaching to have the best teaching result for the kids and to help them the most. So I really hope that we can.
Trustee Ching, can we get to the question?
Okay.
Yeah, we just need to get to the question.
Okay. So yeah, my question is that can we make a standard requirement for especially for the elementary teacher, homeroom teachers to have synchronous online teaching, regular online teaching every day, at least 1 hour, and to accumulate the experience to improve the teaching. I mentioned this from the beginning of the from March, and I mentioned little by little, gradually. And I want to see your improvement on this, but it's not very, for me, for the parents, I got a lot of complaints on that. So I think this is really a critical issue to be solved. I hope you can do this. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I can respond a bit to that, but then I turn it over to Superintendent Howitt. I hear what you're saying, and certainly lots of parents do appreciate, and lots of students do appreciate being able to see friends and being able to connect. And we have been advocating, as the ministry has provided direction of doing that. It is a very valuable method of teaching and learning, and I think it is certainly important as people become more skilled with that medium. I think we will see that increase, but not every family is okay with that either. There are families who like the work all at the beginning of the week, and then with a few different kinds of connections. So I'll let we did provide guidelines to staff around increasing synchronized learning, but I look to Superintendent Howitt to expand on that.
Thank you, Madam Director. So just to speak to your comments, Trustee Chin, and also to reinforce the comments made by Trustee Cook, especially our marginalized students have been impacted by this isolation, but it's impacted everybody. Like, I miss my friends. I miss seeing people. My children miss seeing their friends. So that human element is very, very important. And I'm going to give you a little example. I'm in a household, I have 2 children, and they're both learning in a different way. They have excellent teachers. One's in the secondary panel, one's in the elementary panel. One of my children every morning gets up and engages in a live chat with their teacher and their classmates. And then they go off and do work for several hours that's required of them in an asynchronous method. And that really works for her and for that teacher and for that group of kids. My other daughter has several teachers, and it's an asynchronous model predominantly. She's learning just as much as her sister is. It's a model that's working with those teachers. They're providing a really strong, predominantly asynchronous program. So as my colleagues have suggested, and as the director has spoken to, there's been a huge learning curve for teachers when that switch went off in March. And what we've done is we've honored that teachers require that time to engage in that learning and to move on that continuum to offer a robust program. They've done incredible work in a very short period of time. And the perspective that we've taken has been an encouragement of teachers to do that work. And more each day, people are dipping their toe into the pond and trying something a little bit different to keep their students engaged. And I really like the line that both Director Kelly and I think Superintendent Mills spoke about, and that was like they're reinventing themselves every day to keep kids engaged. So the perspective that the board has taken has been welcoming teachers to do this work and honoring them in their professional development in that journey. Change is hard for people, and they've done a lot in a short period of time. I think what we've described tonight as well is that through our professional development and direction in preparing for the fall, we will be giving further explicit direction and a criteria of what that expectation will be. On this day in June, I don't know if we mandate that between now and the end of the year, how much of a difference that's going to make as people are continuing in their journey of learning. There's a whole host of professional development out there. There's encouragement from the school principal in their team meetings with their staff, connecting educator to do that work. I think we need to honor that it's a process and that we're preparing for the fall with further expectations delineated to our staff about what that would look like. So I really appreciate all the comments, but I think we also need to honor the professionals and the work that they're doing, and that it is a process for learning and implementation and trying. So I hope that answers your question. I don't necessarily think mandating it between now and the end of the year is going to be the best mode of supporting staff in their learning process. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Superintendent Howitt. Trustee Chin, did you have a supplemental?
Yeah, I have supplemental. I appreciate their explanation. And actually, my comments is based on the overwhelmed complaints from parents. And almost all of them, they feel that real-time live teaching is the best way. And many of them said without real-time teaching, and they just the teachers put the burden of guiding the students to the parents. They said, I have to guide them to do everything. And it's really frustrated. And many of them don't have the capability or don't have the time to do that, especially for the young kids. I mean, for the high school kids, they may learn by themselves with writing guidance, but for the young kids, they cannot read and they cannot do anything without the parents, explaining
Trustee
to them.
I don't want to interrupt your question, but I really do need the question to come forward.
Yeah, I mean, my question is that those kind of complaints from the parents, and it's really urgent to be resolved, and we have to take those seriously. And I do have other question regarding the survey, so I would like to give other trustee chance to ask before I ask that. Thank you.
Thank you. So did you have a second question there? I didn't hear a question come out. Were you just referring to that you have a second question?
Yeah, I have a second.
So we'll move forward then. I'm going to move forward to student trustee Jane.
Thank you, Trustee Higginson. Just a follow-up to Trustee Hatfield's question about student engagement. I think I might have an answer already, but I would just like to ask to clarify. For students who are struggling to engage and may not be engaging at all, can they be at risk of failing a course and not acquiring the credit? I've had some secondary school students reach out to me alarmed and stressed with concerns of teachers telling them that they have been granted permission to give students a grade of I for incomplete, which means that students have not completed enough of the coursework and thus will not acquire the course credit. Is this a new assessment system we have adopted as a board, or is this just a one-off kind of frustrated teacher?
May I answer that one, Director Kelly?
Go ahead.
Absolutely, I was going to suggest that.
Okay, but through you, Madam Chair. No, the only way that an I will be given to a student is if they were not passing the course at midterm. If they had a mark above 50 at midterm, that mark cannot go down.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies things.
Thank you. Trustee Burgess for your first question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do have two questions and they're unrelated. If I could throw you to Superintendent Mills, there was progress given on the move towards away from Trevlock to Aspen. And I know you presented it before. You said, my mind honestly is completely blank about Aspen. I can't remember. I know, I can imagine, what the shortcomings of Trevlock are in that it's, it's dealing with a dinosaur, but I'm wondering, in light of today's circumstances, heightened feelings of vulnerability and marginalization, particularly amongst racialized youth, is there a spot or a way of using the student information system to capture some of the information that we capture in Trevlock, incidents, different things, to help us better understand students who are marginalized, racialized, and or in needs of additional support, et cetera, to track, I guess, trends, in a student's life, to help inform our decision-making for that racialized and marginalized group of students.
Sure, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chris, Superintendent Mills. I'm thinking perhaps other superintendents, perhaps Dr. Pike would like to answer that too. I'm just not really sure the nature of the intention of the question, but start us off there, Superintendent Mills.
Okay.
Well, the capabilities of Aspen are great. Obviously, there are some things that we'd have to consider as we move forward with the implementation, privacy concerns,
right.
And some of those sorts of things when we're gathering that type of information. Right. But certainly, the new student information system will be far more capable than our current. There are so many more features in what in what we're getting than what we have, so that there are many possibilities. But I think I will do as the director had said and turn that over to Superintendent Pike.
Thank you. Through you, the chair. I am not speaking from an Aspen point of view, but more from collecting data point of view, is that we will be having a plan in place for Greater Essex County District School Board in 2022. I think that's what the legislation states in terms of keeping race-based data. So that will be coming forward to our board, and then we'll be working with Aspen in terms of what kind of notifications, et cetera, will be put on records.
Supplemental, Madam Chair? Just for clarification, if I hear you in 2022, there is going to be a kind of a mandated expectation of all boards. Does that prevent us from starting some of what we think might be useful in the next school year, should classrooms resume, for example?
Through you, the chair again. No, there's not. It's just getting the plan ready. We have to do lots of consultation as we work through the process. Okay. And so we want to make sure that we've got everyone consulted with prior to just collecting data. We want to make sure they know that we have a plan, that it's going to be moving forward, and it's for the betterment for student achievement. So
Thank you.
It is mandatory. It's a law. So we're moving forward, but if we can get it in place early, of course we will. But at this point, that is the deadline of when we're supposed to be doing it.
Thank you, Superintendent Pike, and to the other superintendents. So I'm going to give one last call for first questions before I go on to second questions of trustees. I do have 5 with their second question. I hope I didn't miss anyone. I'll give you 2 seconds. No, okay, so I'm going to go to Trustee Cheen had a second question there.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Chair. My second question is regarding the survey. I know our plan for the future should based on the, knowing the feedback from the parents. And I did get through with the survey that we just collected, and we know that we have over 80% percentage satisfaction rate. But when I read the questions, I did find a problem with that because the question asked the question. Excuse me. The question asked if the teacher is satisfied. Sorry. Please. If the describes the communication from the school, and if they are pleased with the communication from the school, and this it has kind of misunderstanding. The miscommunication, the communication does not mean really mean that the teaching teaching method. And I mean, if I answer the question as a parent, I also will be satisfied because I know the teacher is very has put a lot of endeavor to communicate with me, send me emails, call me, but it has nothing to do with the way that they give teaching. So I feel that the satisfaction rate may not, represent the way that all these are satisfied with the way of teaching method. So I wonder if we can, and there are also a lot of parents, they didn't have chance to answer the survey, and I wonder if we can do a survey, particularly asking about the teaching method, for example, the live teaching, and reach those parents who didn't respond and who said they haven't got the survey. And is that possible? Because I think that's very important for our future plan.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's Director Kelly. I wonder if Superintendent Hillman could answer that based on the fact that he did the parent survey. I know that that was a huge amount of work with certainly, I think, about 10 people involved in data collection, sort of analysis. So I don't know if there's, the plan is, but perhaps he could speak to that.
Thank you, Director Kelly, and through you, Madam Chair, I'm happy to respond. I did provide preliminary results to the Board of Trustees at our last meeting. And at that point, I shared with you specific demographic data and individual questions, such as the one that was shared. Please describe your preferred method of communication. Please describe workload. So the satisfaction comment is just specific to communication. So it would have been shared that with respect to question number 5, describe the communication from the school, that approximately 85% of parents said that they were satisfied with the communication. That 85% is just specific to question number 5. Questions 7 asked parents to explain what is working well for them, and that is a list full of 2,800 responses from parents that list the teaching that is helpful. Question number 8 asked parents to describe what is not working well for them. We have 2,800 responses that talk about the teaching, that have parents saying they want online learning, or they're struggling because there's challenges with immersion support for my students, or we're struggling because I have to have my kid on the computer at 10 and I don't want to. Question 9 asked, what is it that we can do to assist you? And again, almost 3,000 responses that tell us what we can do. And those responses are about teaching. And then the final question, question number 10, asked, what questions do you have at this time? And many of the questions, many of the thousands of questions that were asked are questions about teaching. So I would agree that question number 5, 85% were satisfied with communication is only for that one question. We certainly didn't present an overall, number. What we were pleased with was that the way we asked the questions allowed us to really understand what challenges our families are having, what are the teaching methodologies that they prefer, what are the challenges that technology, instruction and assessment are giving them. So between those 4 questions, we had approximately 11,000 responses from parents that were specific to how much teaching, what kind of teaching, when was the teaching, online versus not online. So this data contains significant parent input about teaching. And as I shared at our last meeting, in addition to giving a report, that the important work has been turning this information into actions for us as a board. So we've done that. We've identified, as I shared, major elements that the parents have notified or have identified as critical to them. We've identified 30 teaching strategies that our parents tell us are important. We've met with all principals to share those. I've had the opportunity to meet with Superintendent Canty and his student success team to share those so that they can build that into professional learning. So I am very confident that the most pleased parents we have and the most frustrated parents we have are clearly represented in our work. And our job is to take that information and to help enact that through both our teachers in schools and our planning as a senior team.
Thank you, Superintendent Hillman.
Can I have supplementary?
Yep, I need you to stick to the question, but yes, absolutely.
Oh, yes. And yes, I appreciate the answers. Yes. So those the satisfaction rate only represent the communication, not the teaching method. And I would like to give you the information that I have a lot of contacts with the parents, and all of them, they do expect the online teaching. So that's why I want you to have another survey to get the truly, opinion from the parents, and not, be kind of satisfied with this satisfaction rate. And it's important for us to know and how the students works and how the parents feels. And those open questions, yes, they do respond, but because of the format of the open questions, it cannot give us clearly, information about what is really important for us to improve. So I hope that we can make a survey, and especially regarding those complaints, that the most complaint is why not synchronous online teaching. We can just ask them, are you expecting live online synchronous online teaching or not? If yes, what's the reason? If not, what's the reason? So in this way, it's easy to get the real opinion from the parents and how we can improve. And also, I'm not.
Is there a supplemental question?
Yes, the supplemental question is that if we can make the survey directly regarding the synchronous online teaching, because that's the most complaint that I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Hillman.
Respectfully, the purpose of the research survey is to ask questions we don't know the answers to. We were authentically interested in how our parents perceived this and what they needed. It was literally 180 hours of work, from design to implementation to analysis and reporting, and it was critical work to do. What I would say is, if the concern is that there are parents who believe that online learning is essential, we have hundreds of responses that have told us that. We're very, very open to that. No part of that, no part of our report hides that in any way. The entire purpose of this report is to identify those concerns, to bring them forward, plan differently, and to act in a new way as we move forward, which for us, and from a planning perspective, is for September. So having another 100 people say they want online learning doesn't help us. We know that. Interestingly, we have many hundreds of families who don't want online learning, which is what makes this complex, right? So what we need to do is help schools and teachers understand not online learning yes or no, but when and how and with what supports. So to ask a question we know the answer to, I don't think is where we should spend our time. I openly accept that you have had concerns brought forward about online learning. We absolutely have hundreds of those. It is one of 6 major findings in this report. The 4th most commented on element in the entire report is parents' desire for online learning. So we've got it understood and are planning forward. It is why you are hearing conversations already about building in this learning for staff. Parents in this report said that they wanted more EDSB videos. They're already up. We've responded to that. Parents asked for access to Lexia over the summer. Superintendent Wilcox shared that. So we are acting on that, and I'm not confident that, being told, whether it's 500 families or 300 families, we understand that as an element from this report, and we are acting on that moving forward.
I have supplementary.
I'm sorry, Trustee Chin, there's one supplemental question. If you have something else, it may have to be a notice of motion. So we're moving forward. I wonder if Trustee Hatfield would permit me to instead of, I have her next on her second question, but Trustee Halberstadt had a first question. I wonder if Trustee Hatfield, you'd be amenable to allowing Trustee Halberstadt to ask his first question.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you. So Trustee Halberstadt, go ahead, and then Trustee Hatfield, you'll be on deck.
Yeah, my question is more a suggestion. I think that Linda has a strong point of view, and I think administration isn't agreeing with some of the things she says. So I think to speed things along, I think maybe we should get to notices of motion at some point, and Linda can make notices of motion to that effect, and we could debate it in 2 weeks.
Trustee Halberstadt, we do have a timed item at 9:50 that is notices of motion. So even if this is at that point, then she can address it at that point.
Okay, just trying to help us move along.
Thank you. Trustee Hatfield, your second question.
Sorry, the thing wasn't coming up for me to unmute. First, I just want to say thank you for this extended period of asking questions. I think obviously trustees are very interested in what's happening now with our school system and what may be happening in September or over the summer. Because my question might be a little bit premature, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because I'm trying to get a sense of what September might look like if we do go back to the classroom. And it was mentioned in the report tonight that we are able to allow students to keep whatever technology we've given them, iPads, computers, laptops, whatever, that they're going to be able to keep them over the summer. And that's great. And so the two things I'm interested in, if we're able to go back to school in September, how quickly will we be able to get all that information technology back into our classrooms and get them up and ready for use? Because it did take a long time to actually put them out into the system for students. I'm glad we were able to, but I wonder how long it's going to take to get them back. If that's going to take a month, I just wonder how we're going to accomplish that. And the other thing, I started thinking about the necessary or what might be necessary in terms of reconfiguring our classrooms to be able to accommodate the return of students. And I'm sure there's going to be guidelines for that, social distancing and all of whatever else is necessary. But I just wondered if there's been any thought yet to those two aspects, how the classrooms are going to look and how we're going to get that technology back up and running. I'm thinking about, for example, portables. There's not a whole lot of room in there for social distancing, and we have a lot of portables. So I just wondered if there's been any preliminary looks at how we get everything back up and running if we're able to in September. I know it might be premature, but maybe admin has given it some thought.
Yeah. Through you, Madam Chair, there has been a lot of models suggested with respect to what classroom configurations might look like. I know that Superintendents Pike, Armstrong, and Hillman sit on a committee with a number of other boards that are looking at all kinds of timetables, models, social distancing. Again, of course, context and guidelines and all that will matter. With respect to the technology pieces, so we've thought about it. It's a lot of work and it's confusing, but there has been extensive thinking on that. With respect to the technology, I know that the IT people have thought a lot about that, and so I would ask Superintendent Mills. I know you've talked about that, so perhaps you can clarify your thoughts on that, because I know that the technology and making sure students have it is very important.
Yeah, it will certainly be a process to collect all of the devices that are out in the system. One of the things that we did early on is we created a tech interface so that we could track all of the devices that are out into the community. So that will certainly help us with the retrieval of those devices. It's associated with the student's OEN number. So we will make sure when they come back in that they are, physically disinfected. But then they're also going to have to be virtually cleaned because we don't want to bring any, cyber concerns back into our schools. We would probably be looking at a couple of weeks for that to happen. And you know, that will be based on the guidelines from the ministry and the guidelines from the health unit as to what we're doing in September. And as we get closer, we'll know better when we start doing that collection. Does it happen at the end of August? Is it something that, you know, the students continue to hold on to those devices into September? But as we get closer to September startup, we'll have a better idea.
That's great. And thank you. I appreciate hearing that we have 3 members of our senior admin team sitting on those provincial discussions. I'm sure that our team has lots of good things they can contribute. So thank you for that bit of information too.
And there was a bit of a question there. Maybe Superintendent Armstrong would be able to answer that about plans for social distancing in our facilities.
I believe I answered that question.
Oh, maybe I.
Yeah, I thought you did, but
sorry. Sorry.
More to come on that, though, I suspect.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Sure. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys, for catching me up. Trustee Olmsted, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. My question is, if we are still educating our students in a distance or remote learning environment come September, will we still be able to offer our specialized programs like OYAP or Specialist High Skills Major or co-op, for example, those programs that require like a more hands-on experience? Will we be able to fulfill the program requirements through online learning? I'm just trying to envision what kind of model is being proposed as we move forward into this new vision of learning.
Superintendent Candy, I think that's all over. That's you.
Yeah. So yeah, if I may, again, there's so many things in the womb of time that we just don't know yet in terms of what the health officials are going to say and what the ministry is going to say. We were able to patch together programs and online learning webinars and activities for students to do to ensure they got their credits. However, moving into certainly the summer learning, we're not sure if we're going to be able to do co-op if there isn't the hands-on experience available. Looking at September, again, we're hoping there'll at the very least be a hybrid where we can do some in-person, face-to-face, as well as the theory on the digital aspect. So right now, we hope that we are able to go forward with SHISM and experiential learning and OYAP and co-op. However, as you pointed out, Trustee Olmsted, these are areas that really require hands-on. So we're hoping we can, but we don't have a definitive answer yet, unfortunately.
Supplemental?
Go ahead.
So those students who have already enrolled in those courses, how will we support them, especially if they're in that stream, like the construction stream or mechanics, and that is their path of learning? I know we're literally, the analogy of building the plane as we fly is there, but I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to really engage all of our students if that is the way that those students are learning, is through that like hands-on experiential learning.
And it's a great question, and we've been asking that with our partners across the province. What can we do for these kids moving forward? And it's akin to the question that was asked of Dr. Howard earlier in terms of phys ed and how we're going to do that and how we're going to do musical instruments. I mean, we're going to have to find ways to provide theory until we can do the hands-on. Obviously, safety's first, and we got to follow the direction of the Ministry of Education and the health unit. So we will do what we can, and we'll have to wait and see what we're able to do once the time comes. In terms of the students that are already enrolled, we will certainly try to, find ways for them to do the theory portion of their courses first, and hopefully we can figure out how to do the hands-on portion later. But we're working on it, and we were very concerned, and it goes back to, I was just listening to Trustee Cook earlier. Like, we are all concerned for our students, and we all want to do what's best for our students. We know that some of the areas are hit harder, and some of the students are hit harder, but we are in this together, and we're going to continue to find solutions.
I know you are. Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you very much. I've got Trustee Burgess with her second question.
Oh, I thought, okay.
Trustee Quick has withdrawn her second question. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. My question, I'm not sure who it's for. It could be perhaps through you to Superintendent Armstrong. But it was in the report about facilities, and I saw a lot about, you know, extra cleaning and protocols, et cetera, a lot of cleaning of surfaces, et cetera. And again, I want to reiterate the acknowledgement. I'm glad that we're on the OASBO, you know, health and safety return, you know, safe return to school, reopening, et cetera. I think having input is good. So a lot of these questions are about how are we advocating kind of provincially as well to come back when the ministry comes back with what we need to do, because some of it is funding. So mine is about indoor air quality. I haven't heard a whole lot about how we're going to present different indoor air quality protocols, especially in the light of this pandemic concerning a respiratory illness. I've heard people say, well, I'm never going to use an electric hand dryer again, because it just, you know, it's all about droplets, and at that head level, if your face is right there, blah, blah. I haven't heard anything about when the heating gets turned on, how our HVAC is, do we have to put different filters? Those types of facility things that are on the, you know, the granular level for planning for the next season. Is that at the provincial talks as far as funding for those things? Because I can't see that we're going to go forward for the same indoor air quality protocols even in our schools going forward.
Thank you for that question. It's Superintendent Armstrong. It's a good question. Right now, our school ventilation is currently running as if schools were occupied. So that's very helpful from that perspective. Also, we do have an indoor, an IAQ protocol as well. In terms of funding, that's a great question. A lot of our funding currently is enveloped. And like we've been saying all along, we continue to wait for the ministry to provide some guidance in terms of what the GSN will look like and whether there'll be some flexibility in terms of how we can utilize and spend that funding for items that now need to take precedence because of the social distancing and some of the concerns that you have raised.
Thank you, Superintendent Armstrong. Trustee Sipkar. Sorry, I missed you earlier.
That's okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. And that's actually a perfect segue to my question. So mine was going to be, as a lot of our direction is coming from the ministry right now, and I know that a number of our administration, including Director Kelly, are sitting at provincial tables. I'm wondering if we have any budgetary concerns related to both the current school closure period as well as our reopening in the fall. I know that Minister Lecce has said that our GSNs, which are, as Superintendent Armstrong just noted, the primary chunk of our budget, will not be coming out until June or July, which is a bit behind. And so I've noted things like, increase in tech usage, potential increase in transportation due to physical distancing on buses, staffing ratios in classes that will need to be altered and probably, reduced in terms of less students in the class, meaning more space generally, if we're expecting kids to and staff to be physically distant. So I'm wondering what it looks like right now at the senior administration level to plan for these different scenarios. And do we have any major kind of budgetary concerns that as we're going into a budget soon to approve for next year that trustees should be aware of?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think I can answer that. It's funny because I wrote down all the things and then you said them all. The issue around transportation, technology, and staffing ratios, I think, are huge. There's also going to be a lot of protective equipment, we're assuming. There may be things like plexiglass in certain places in schools. I think there's going to be some facilities requirements that are going to be costly. So I think we do need accommodation for that in a budget process.
Thank you very much. So I do have one question, although I would love to have wrapped it up on that one. And I'm going to say that I'm going to ask my question. It should be a fairly quick response, and then we'll move to, we have a timed item. So I will make it very quick. But my question is maybe to Superintendent Howitt. We have a lot of our summer programming, and we specifically looked at our STEAM disciplines. And I know we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'm wondering if there could be some more details on this. So we know there are kids out there who might look across these academic metrics that we have as this success. And they have great marks, and they have high academic achievements, and so we think they've engaged well, and everything is great, and we're so proud of their achievements. But the reality is that for some of those students, that phys ed and extracurriculars are what connect them to their peers and connect them to the potential and to their learning in other areas. So I'm wondering what our plans are for summer and for moving forward outside of the STEAM disciplines to offer that connection to learning that those students that are really engaged in their phys ed and their extracurriculars are kind of missing right now.
Sure. So the summer learning opportunities is focused primarily on literacy and numeracy, but those opportunities that I talked about, like the month at a glance and the online resources, offer like a comprehensive model, a model around the total development of the child. So there's inquiry opportunities, there's connections to nature, there's an infusion of an Indigenous perspective and a connection to nature. There's daily physical activity, fitness types of activities, art, visual arts activities, music-based activities that really connect to the development of the whole child. So we realize and respect that that's important. So we wanted to offer that in the summer. There is components of it in the summer learning program, but the predominant focus is students who are struggling in the summer learning program. That's part of the criteria. But that other information that we're putting out as well is for a more comprehensive approach to the development of the whole child, because we do value that's what keeps kids engaged and keeps them healthy too, and having that kind of overall perspective. So we are offering that to the degree that we can right now.
And just supplemental to that, is there any looking forward about extracurriculars in a way that we can socially, it's so difficult to socially distance with those extracurriculars, but providing that connection to their peers in those kinds of environments that I know would be, it would look a little different, and it wouldn't necessarily satisfy the utmost experience of those students, but would provide them a chance to kind of connect with each other in a way that's not academically based. Is there an opportunity? Are we looking at opportunities to do that?
I think that response should be from my colleague, Superintendent Auender, who really works around coordinated sports activities, but that is a concern. So I'm gonna, if I may, pass it to him to respond to.
Thank you.
Thanks, Superintendent Howitt. Through you, Madam Chair. It's a really tough thing to do because we don't necessarily have the control of how the kids, if they're not supervised by the individuals, are going to be. When you take younger kids especially, what I do personally right now for my own kids is I do allow them to bike and jog, but they do social distance, and I typically go with them. And they do that quite often. I think in this kind of a situation, it probably will rely on the parents somewhat more so, just for that safety reason, I think. And I watch some kids in the neighborhood, and I do see that the social distance isn't necessarily there when the supervisor isn't directly there. So I worry a little bit about it. There's certainly opportunity for it, but I think it has to be a very careful approach in how it's done.
Thank you very much. Okay, so trustees have indicated to me that they're okay with going through our education committee agenda before we go over to our public agenda. So I appreciate that. And so seeing that, we will continue forward through our agenda here on the and Education Committee. We have no delegations. We have no one on the speakers list. We have no new business. We do have a report to be received, and it is the Technology, Student Engagement, and Alternatives to Technology-Based Education Delivery report.
I can speak to that. It's Superintendent Mills. We're pleased to provide the trustees with the presented report based on the motion from Trustee Higginson. It addresses the status of technology, student engagement, and alternatives to technology-based education delivery. Just prior to the meeting, Ms. LeBouf sent you an updated chart for the number of average daily users by week for EDSB. A column was missing, and we apologize for that omission. And at this point, we are open to any questions that you may have.
Wonderful, thank you. And I want to thank administration for this. Is a very quick turnaround, and I really appreciate it. Do trustees have questions on this report? Trustee Cheen.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. And my question is regarding the number of average daily users by week. And is this one that you just updated by email?
Correct. An updated version just came out to you prior to the start of this meeting.
Yeah, my question is that the number represents the average users or the average times of the person who log into the SB, because sometimes one person might log into several times, or parents and students, they log separately. I mean, is this for different people or just the times accumulation?
Those represent unique logins, so it would only be for one student logging in for that day, so it would only count as one, a unique login.
Oh, so if the student log in several times, it counts one, right?
Right, it wouldn't track those additional logins.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have Trustee Olmsted.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering as well, it has to do with the logins, particularly with students, with EDSB or any of the online platforms. How do these kind of logins really compare? I'm not sure if you have that information, but compare to a regular school environment. Because I know personally with my kids, they use EDSB on a continual basis. In or out of school. So I was just wondering how the logins compared to remote learning versus regular in-class learning when they're logging in for homework or assignments from teachers in that kind of environment.
Part of the information that we provided you gave you some numbers that happened directly after the March break, and this is very close to after, obviously, after the school closures were announced. So we didn't have the same uptake on EDSB as would have happened in these past few weeks. So if you look at those numbers that happened just after the March break, those would be good comparators for you. So for our students, we had about 6,900 and about 7,400 logins for those 2 weeks after the March break. And then when that real push came, it jumped up to about 20,000 on an average weekly basis for student logins. So it kind of gives you an understanding prior to the school closures, the numbers would have been more reflective of those 2 weeks after the March break.
Okay, so perfect. So a huge jump, therefore, in the logins. Is there any idea of like the percentage of students that are logging in? Do we know anything like that?
The information that we got from EDSB initially indicated that we were around 70 or 80% of our students after that jump happened. But that is certainly something that I could to look at for you to see if we can get some additional information to give you a more accurate number at this time.
Perfect. That would be great.
Great. So I have Trustee Sipcar is next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this report. I kind of have two questions, but I'm going to blend them together to get it all in one shot. I just wanted to be clear, what did the 4 specific phases look like? I kind of made notes that it was like parents' request, school message, shared on social, contact from school, and I'm just wondering if you could paint a really clear picture of what those phases look like. And then the second part of that question is there only one tech device per household, or can a parent request, let's say 5, let's say if they have 5 kids?
Sure, be happy to answer that one as well. Definitely the first phase was parental requests, and we had set up a form on the board website for that, so parents were able to do that. We had obviously a number of requests through that phase. Then when we went to the second phase, we went because of the contact that teachers were making specifically with families. We looked at having the principals put in those requests for us. So teachers would contact principals and let them know that families needed devices, or families would reach out directly to administrators in the school to let them know that they needed a device. It helped us with our tracking. That's when we began to develop our tech interface. So our tracking became more specific at that time, and so that's why that happened in phase 2 and 3 and 4. As far as the devices go, if families indicated that they had devices at home, we did not initially supply them with devices. And again, that's with our staff knowing our families very well. Many times what we did is we reached out to those administrators reached out to us to say this is a family of 4 or 5 and they would benefit from additional advice. We were able to provide additional devices to some of our larger families. So once we got into over 3 members in a household, if we looked at 4, 5, 6, and in one case I think there was a family of 7 that we provided additional units to. So we would look at those specifics with those families, and that happened through phase 2 and partway through 3.
Thank you very much. I'm looking at Trustee Halberstadt as the next question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think you might have touched on this earlier, but I just want some clarification, and that's on the back page with regard to, I guess, the students and the parents and the families who are just basically shut down since March 23rd. Do we have any update on those numbers? It's basically about 1,960 as of May 19th. Do we have any figures to update that so we know we might be improving at all, or are we pretty well resigned that this is the way it's going to be till the end of the year?
This is Superintendent Pike, if it's okay through you, the chair.
Absolutely.
The stats were taken by, of course, May 19th, as it indicates in the report, and there was no future plans to ask for other stats to update that at all. Right now, we've got lots of things going on in the schools, but know that our principals continue to work hard to engage families.
Okay, and then in September is going to be a new game, I understand, that students or families just can't shut down or be uninvolved. They would have to be attending school or participating remotely. Would that be safe to say?
At this point, we're unsure of what the model is going to look like. So we are going to be waiting for direction on whether or not we're going back. If we are going back, what that looks like. From there, the ministry will determine about what our attendance practices are going to be in terms of how we're going to record attendance or not. So we'll take direction from them.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see that Trustee Chin has a second question. I wanted to give trustees a chance to ask a first question. As a Trustee Burgess, I see that you have a question here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a question about EDSB use, and I've try to read the report and glean from it what I can. I think there's a tremendous effort going forward. I'm trying to understand if there's any correlation between all the different platforms, the same people equally engaged, or are people more engaged in one platform than the other? Or in fact, my question is about EDSB. So I saw the revised chart sent to us, revised since the hard copy package, and I've looked at that, but I'm trying to understand what an EDSB contact really is. Is it possible that an EDSB contact could be numbered as a unique login, but it could be school talk, for example, and nothing to do necessarily with an exchange in a formal sense with assessment or engagement with a teacher or some sort of, distinct academic link, in other words? Certainly school talk important for all kinds of different reasons, and a lifeline amongst a lot of friends, I think, in the elementary panel. But I'm just trying to see if I can understand what those contacts in EDSB really are. What is the bulk of them?
Well, EDSB is our main form of communication with parents, and it's also the way that our teachers communicate. Most often with their students, especially in the elementary panel. So when people are logging in, it could be for any one of those reasons. It could be for school talk. It could be to check out their assignments. It could be for a number of events. But certainly when they're logging in, they are going to get that connecting piece with their classmates. They're going to get that connecting piece with their teacher. It's all there presented out for them.
Thank you very much. So I'm looking to Trustee Cheen had a second question.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. My question is regarding page 23. I don't know. Could you give an explanation of the sentence after the form with the asterisk? Difference between activated and non-activated accounts represent students that may not have had the opportunity to log prior to school closures. Can anyone give an explanation on this? I don't understand this. Yeah.
I can speak to that as well. So many times when you're speaking about My Blueprint, and you're talking about activated accounts and all accounts. So students would have their accounts activated. Many times one of our consultants would come into the schools. Natalie Middleton-Bondi would come in and work with the intermediate teachers at the school. So in many cases, after the school closure, she didn't get that opportunity to go in. So some of those accounts may not have been activated because she wouldn't have gotten the chance to visit some of those classrooms.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you, trustees. I do have a question, and I may have a couple, but I may send just the one in by email. So I'm really glad to get this report so that I could kind of take a look at it and see it kind of holistically, and I'm really appreciative of it. And when I took a look at it, I still had some questions that I realized weren't answered by the kind of holistic nature of what of the information that we had. And my questions were, I'm kind of trying to make sense between technology requests and student engagement, and I can see that in student engagement we seem to have these kind of two areas, JK to grade 3 and grade 9 to grade 12, that we seem to be needing to focus our efforts a little bit, or we just know that we seem to know from the data here that those are the areas that are areas of that are engaging the least. And so, and I've heard us talk a lot about tonight about our community groups and exercising our connections to them and helping us to enhance the kind of resources and programs that we currently have. And what I would like to get a sense of, and maybe this could go in with Trustee Olmstead's question earlier, is where our tech saturation is per family of schools. And if we could get a family of schools breakdown for tech saturation, if that's possible. And the reason I'm asking is this. We are not going to be able to be all things to all people. And where we have these community organizations that we currently have partnerships with, and where we can see opportunities for other community organizations to support our efforts. If we're looking at where we need to focus those efforts, I'd like to know where those things are. And if we can know where they're at, then we can look to wrap supports around the things that we can glean out of this report and the things that we don't know. So our families are disengaging for many, many reasons, not all of them academic and motivation. And so we can lean on those community partners, but in order for us to do that, I really need us to know the where. So is it possible to get those numbers broken down by family of schools, that technology saturation that went out per family of schools?
I'm going to try to answer this, Director Kelly. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that would glean. It's really the work of staff, and I'm just trying to understand why trustees would need that data. I mean, it seems like a lot of work to be able to do that. I'm just wondering what it is you really hope to achieve from that. Because there's no use doing a report if we don't know the intention of what we would like to get. And I think that is the work of staff, but perhaps I'm missing something.
No, and I don't mean to. Yeah, and I think I may not have explained it well enough. What I'm trying to get at is rather than compete with the work that we're currently doing, if there are second requests after tech has failed, or if there are second requests after tech has after we've kind of exhausted the tech that's available, and we have an opportunity out in the community to wrap supports around that, people that can access funds to be able to support our students with tech, or if we have an opportunity to look forward at we heard tonight about LTE access in some of our tablets and things like that, that we can reach outward to other levels of government to be able to support those things. And I'm just wondering if we can get some idea of that. And maybe that's something that I can work with you after on. I'm just trying to get at what supports we can wrap around that aren't exhausting the resources that we are currently exhausting within our organization right now, but are instead looking outward. And maybe that's something that I can chat with you about after. It's what I was really kind of looking for in this, is to where we can reach out with current existing partnerships that we have to really wrap those supports around. I don't know if I'm being clear enough on that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Superintendent Mills. Certainly, Alicia, our Trustee Higginson, we could talk afterwards and talk about community partnerships and what it is that we do to make sure that we could secure the devices that we need for those family of schools. And again, I know our schools know their families very well and what their needs are, and certainly that's something that we could talk about afterwards.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay, so we're moving on through the agenda here. We're at trustee question period. Do we have anything for in here? Now, I will remind trustees, and I will tell anybody who's still hopefully watching, that we can have questions here for both, because we don't have an Ops and Finance meeting tonight. You can ask questions of Ops and Finance or of Education Committee, but I would ask you to keep them fairly succinct and to tell which committee you're trying to answer, so that we can make sure that our senior admin are prepared for those questions. So I see I do have questions here. I have one from Trustee Sipcar to start off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, this is probably directed at Superintendent Howitt, but I'm just wondering, what is our current programming around supporting students who identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color? And do we do anything in our board specifically related to any sort of anti-racism training in terms of professional development for our staff, or learning opportunities, or just even activities in our classrooms?
It's Superintendent Pike. I'd be happy to answer this question. Last year, well, it's been a couple years, but last year specifically, we spent an inordinate amount of our time in our professional development for our administrators on issues of equity, of anti-racism, of Black, Caribbean, and African students. So we've done a lot in those particular things in terms of book studies. We had a PA day that was dedicated specifically for that. So when we talk about a book study, which is something unusual that we've done, is that we actually did it each month for 10 months, and we went through the full book. So it was a lot of real fulsome conversations that we can move forward on that. That was a big piece of it, not including all the guest speakers that we did bring in for the last 2 years for them, so that we can move this in our schools. And it is in our schools, lots of conversations. In the slides that I did present tonight, I did say that there was another book study, which is unusual per school during COVID, where the whole staff is engaging in the book study of a different book, which is a continuation of it. We do have an African, Black, and Caribbean coach, graduation coach, which is brand new this year. It's a pilot study for us. Really looking forward to the data that's going to be coming forward from that, as well as our Change Your Future counselors that we have in some of our schools, not all of our schools, but we have 2 for the system, and they work primarily with 4 to 5 schools. Again, lots of data that comes forward from that. So we've got some, we always have work to do, to be honest. There's always lots of things that we want to do. We really work hard through our policies that we've got and our equity and inclusion regulation, as well as our human rights policy in terms of what kinds of professional development we can offer. We do offer a full slate of choices in the summer and throughout the year for our staff.
Do you have supplemental, Trustee Sukar?
Yes. Okay. So I just kind of want to situate that question in this current context and ask, how are we currently supporting students during these moments? I know that the last week has been overwhelming for me as an adult. You know, watching things on social media that can have, just bring up a lot of emotions. And because students are at home, I'm just wondering if we have any sort of current supports, or for teachers who maybe want to give resources to parents, or for students who are bringing up these conversations online. And I'm just really wanting to just gauge kind of, has this come forward, and what kind of resources do we have to offer parents and students at this time related specifically to this issue?
If I might continue. Thank you. Yes, we do have actually I'm sorry, a document, it's getting late, a document that's ready to go for tomorrow that does speak to different resources that are out there. And we've got a compendium of many, I think it's 19 pages of resources, as well as books that they can be reading to children, and about how staff is to respond and not to be afraid of the conversation, but giving tips about, yes, that you are to listen, you're not to judge, all of those kinds of things that we'll be presenting to staff, and that's going to be out to them for tomorrow. As well as the wonderful letter that was written that's out to show our stance and our just sorrow of what happened to George Floyd. We really do want to engage conversation, and it does happen online, and it will happen through the groups of employees that we do have, the Change Your Future counselors and our graduation coach as well, through their network of students.
Thank you for that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I've got Trustee Burgess with a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I could, through you, it's a question about what happens to our schools with landscaping when they're not in use? Generally, when there's a school that has been deemed surplus, I'll give the example of Harrow District High School, for example, and there are surrounding grounds that start in April, May, June, and the grass gets high, and then when you get the flood of questions about when's the grass going to get cut, and there are ticks in the field nearby, and plant and facility generally respond quickly, and these things are contracted out and they're taken care of. But now, of course, we have all of our facilities that are in this predicament. I did have a chat, and I want to thank facilities manager, and I hope I've got whatever his title is, Rick Emery, for quick response on some of the several calls I got about different properties following the heat we got. But what is our plan for June? June is usually the time when we get flooded with these questions about being a good neighbor as far as keeping the grasses cut and the dandelions cut and our sporting fields in good shape and etc. So what are we doing for June? Because this June's different. Usually we start a different schedule in July and August.
Hi there, it's Superintendent Armstrong. All of our lawn cutting services, they are contracted out to a variety of contractors. Typically, the grass is cut on a 10-day schedule. However, we have changed that, so all the grass is cut on a 7-day schedule. It doesn't matter whether the school is occupied or not. That process will start in April and will go through into the fall with respect to that. And if there are any questions or issues that are raised to trustees with respect to the grass cutting, you can certainly bring that to my attention. And as well, we do the same thing on any of our properties that are surplus and that are unoccupied at this time.
Wonderful. I've got Trustee Halberstadt next. Trustee Halberstadt, are you muted?
Yeah, this is an ops and finance question. We had we didn't have a meeting tonight because there was really no agenda items on what is usually a budget month. But yes, what is the indication of when the GSN is going to come? I know there were some. I think Ron attended or was in on a question and answer with the minister, and I'm just wondering what we're looking at. Sounds like we're looking at maybe July before we get all the technical papers, etc. Can somebody speak to that, please?
Hi, it's Superintendent Armstrong. Certainly, I agree. We definitely are anxious to get our GSN information. From what we understand, we're hoping that we will receive it towards the end of June. I think what a lot will inform the GSN is based on some of the guidance that we receive from the ministry in terms of what school reopening would look like in September. In terms of submission to the ministry, what we are hearing right now is that we would be submitting our budget to the ministry by the middle of August. The Education Act does require that we have a budget in place prior to the start of the next school year.
Okay, just a supplementary. Tonight in the initial report, there was looked like there's been a lot of purchasing and spending going on with regard to IT platforms and COVID equipment, purchases of devices. We have the money in the budget now, in the current budget now, to cover all those purchases that have been going on.
Hi, it's Superintendent Armstrong. Yes, what we've done is we've set up a separate accounting distribution that lets us track these extraordinary expenses that we are incurring. At this time, we do have savings from utilities, And there's obviously some reduced spending across the board in terms of supplies and professional development and things of that nature that would help cover some of those costs. And we will continue to look to the ministry and in terms of flexibility, in terms of our current funding and flexibility for next year's GSN with respect to the increase in purchases for PPE and technology and so forth.
Okay, just can you identify the extra costs, Superintendent Armstrong, that were in the report tonight, what they might be approximate?
I wish I could, but I can't at this time. Obviously, there is some purchasing or tenders, there's been tendering that is going out right now currently for PPE. So I don't have an estimate on that in terms of cost for that. And part of it is what will inform that is the reopening plans for the school and what the school year would look like. So we are tendering that work right now, or in terms of getting a cost. And then with respect to the technology, there are some purchase requisitions that are available, that have been issued there have been purchase requisitions that have been issued in terms of new devices, and Superintendent Mills should be able to answer the costs related to that.
We don't have a final cost of the devices that we've purchased so far, but one of the things that we would be doing is part of it was the regular purchase of devices for retired equipment for next year, and then we'd be looking at future purchases for September.
So I guess my question is, we're keeping a lid on it. I'm assuming.
Got a question?
Sorry, yes, absolutely. We are tracking, like I said, we do have a separate accounting distribution to track it. And to the extent that we are starting to tender for some of the requirements, whether it's technology or PPE, or maybe it's going to be additional custodian costs because of the extra cleaning, whatever those costs are, we are identifying those. And I will be involved in terms of the tendering so that I am aware of what those costs look like, and we'll make sure that we do have sufficient budget and funding to cover those costs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got Trustee Cheen. Trustee Cheen, do you have yourself muted? Have we lost Trustee Cheen here? I don't see Trustee Cheen currently in the meeting. She may have dropped off, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to move forward until we can get some indication from her on whether she is coming back. Has anyone heard from her?
I just emailed her, so I'm texting her too.
Okay. I hate to leave it without knowing, but these are the technological times we are in. Give it a few minutes here for her to respond. It may have been an internet issue even. I'm going to move forward through the agenda just in the interest of time. So I'm here at notices of motion for this committee. Do I see any notices of motion for this committee? I don't see any here. We are at announcements. Trustee Burgess, an announcement?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, it's a question, is this the last meeting of the Education Committee prior to graduation? And will you have an opportunity on your behalf, since you don't really have a spot on here, to congratulate our students and staff on graduations?
Is that for, yeah, go ahead.
It's I can do the announcement, but I'm trying to prompt. I'm trying to ask if you can announce something of congratulations to our students. Is this the last meeting, is it not?
So you're asking Trustee Higginson if she could perhaps say congratulations to the graduates, I think.
Oh, is that
Thank you, Madam Director.
Absolutely. Well, I'm happy to have you do that. I've got a ton of other announcements, so if you want to go ahead and do that, I would be happy to have that.
Well, I don't want to preempt it. It's yeah, I'm sure it's yours. It just says this is Education Committee. We've had a very, very, very eventful year, and looking at all kinds of ways that our students learn and how our parents are partners, and how the extra miles and miles and miles that our staff goes. And I just want to say congratulations, because we're not going to have that typical opportunity to see these great students graduate. We heard about a lot of exemplary students receiving bursaries and scholarships, but I just like to make an announcement that this will be the month of graduations, and that we are so very, very proud of everybody who's made that achievement. And even though we can't be there in person, we want to know that the Board of Trustees really feel very proud of all of you.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much. Does anyone have any other announcements? I see if we're all amenable to it, I see Trustee Chin has come back online. Would it be all right if we allowed her question through? Thank you. Trustee Chin, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I was offline just now, and my question is regarding the discrimination, and there is ongoing frequent discrimination towards Chinese communities because of the virus, and some called Chinese virus, something like that, and regardless of the, there are a lot of more and more evidence and testimony that the virus came earlier than what it happened in China, but there are still, a lot of discrimination towards Chinese community. I wonder, I heard some students, they said they feel scared in school, and they don't want to be discriminated. And I wonder if our school board could do something to help those Chinese students, or to help them to educate the students to have the proper education regarding those kind of discrimination. Thank you.
Superintendent Pike, would you like to take that?
Thank you. Yes. That's unfortunate to hear. Certainly, we address all forms of discrimination in school when we hear it. If you know of specific students who say they're feeling unsafe, and they at school or during the online platform, please have them contact their teacher and or the administrator, so that we're able to assist and get down to the root of the problem, so that we're able to move forward. Every student in our schools should feel safe at school, and we want to work diligently towards that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, trustees, for allowing that question. I think that was very important. It also segues very well into my first announcement here. June is Pride Month, and I am so thrilled that we are still seeing flags flying around. So if anybody's trying to go on their daily walks, which I see happening around my neighborhoods all the time, I hope that you're going to walk past your neighborhood school and see that those flags flying. I'm so proud of those things. And so we are still celebrating inclusion, and we are still celebrating Pride Month, even though we are socially distant from each other. And one of the ways that I want to draw attention to that is we had a video done by members of our staff, again, going above and beyond to put together a video that I think really is fun, encompasses a lot of things. And also thank you to the Mayor of the City of Windsor, Drew Dealkins, who also participated in that video. So please go and take a look at that video that was put together and celebrate Pride Month along with us. June is also, let me pull this up. We are going to be celebrating National Indigenous Peoples Day. The actual date of that is June 21st. And so we're celebrating that by collaborating with other district school boards and joining a virtual summit. So on July 19th, this coming June 19th, pardon me, facilitated by Grandmother's Voice and in collaboration and consultation with Indigenous community partners, elders, knowledge keepers, and the LEADS collaborative table. This virtual summit is going to highlight strong voices from communities abroad, sharing their wisdom and gifts with our students, families, teachers, staff, and communities as a whole. So I encourage all of us to participate in that. And while we are speaking about all these things that have happened in the last little while that are making us anxious and are making us worried for our neighbors and worried for our peers, to be involved in those kinds of knowledge sharing experiences only broadens our perspective and allows us to hear their voices and allows us to experience those things from others' perspectives. And I think that that's increasingly important in these times, not only because we are socially distant from each other, but because there are heightened tensions, and I think we need to be as aware as we possibly can of our own biases and to try to break down those barriers. So with that, we can adjourn, and instead of adjourning into Ops and Finance, we'll adjourn into our public meeting. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Trustee Higginson, for chairing that meeting. So we are back into public session. Declarations of conflict of interest. No conflicts of interest. Trustee Cook, I'll turn it over to you for items from the private session.
Thank you. Matter under H5. Can I have a mover?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Trustee Hatfield. A seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Halberstadt. All in favor?
Support.
Support.
And
Burgess, support.
Thank
Support.
you. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
You're muted, Ron.
I must have hit it twice. Thank you. Minutes of the meeting from May 5th, 2020. Mover for that. Trustee Sibkar, seconder.
Second, Sartori.
Trustee Higginson, second. All in support?
Well, I have a correction.
Okay.
Discussion?
Correction first, Trustee Hatfield.
Yep, item B, attendance.
Okay.
That should be deleted.
Item B, attendance should be deleted.
Chairperson Leclerc noted that Trustee Hatfield was participating via teleconference. We were all on teleconference.
Okay, let me just find that, please. I think, were you on the phone?
Pardon?
Were you on the phone as opposed to on Teams video?
No, it was
Okay,
a
so
Teams meeting.
I'm not sure what prompted me to say that.
It was a Teams meeting. I think that's just a leftover from another month.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, we can amend that. Discussion, Trustee Burgess.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was my exact point.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize if that was me, but as amended, Do we have support?
Support.
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 Support as amended, Burgess.
Thank you.
Support is amended.
Thank you. Thank you. It's carried. Business arising from the minutes. Any business arising from the minutes? Recommendations from the standing committees. I don't believe there's any action items that came out of the standing committees this evening. Notices of motion. Trustee Cheen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two notices of motion. The first is regarding the, okay, let me read it. And
Please do.
okay, thank you. Based on the heavy request from parents regarding synchronous live teaching, I move that the GECDSB standardize the requirement for elementary schools to provide real-time synchronous teaching by homeroom teachers in the event that schools are closed by further pandemics.
Okay, thank you. And your second one?
I move that administration undertake a second survey to gauge the concerns of parents who have expressed dissatisfaction with the online teaching system or identify themselves as not being aware that the first survey took place, especially on the way of teaching, synchronized teaching. Thank you.
So Trustee Cheen, could you share those in a written format with Madame Leboeuf?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Trustee Cook.
Thank you. Here we go. Administration to present a COVID recovery plan, identifying continuing efforts towards student achievement and well-being. The plan will address literacy and numeracy gaps for students, describing special provisions for students with special needs, students in special education programs, students living in poverty, and students experiencing transitions between elementary and high school or graduating. The plan shall identify outcomes and targets based on the new learning environment. Components shall include but not be limited to PD for teachers and other staff, support for students, mental health and well-being, IT devices and internet resources, and a communication strategy for parents and the public. As the plan will evolve over time, administration shall provide regular updates to trustees. And yes, I will give that one to Melissa.
Very much appreciated. Trustee Sipkar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two as well. So the first one is that the GECDSB create an ad hoc COVID communications strategy committee in order to explore new, innovative, accessible, and flexible communication methods and platforms in order to better connect with students, staff, parents, and the wider community regarding the safe reopening of schools and changes in the educational environment for the 2020-2021 school year. The committee shall be comprised of, but not limited to, 2 to 4 trustees, 2 to 4 parents, at least 1 city and 1 county, 2 to 4 principals and/or teachers, as well as our public relations officer. I will give that to Melissa, and then the second motion is shorter, and it is just that the GECDSB Board of Trustees direct the policy committee to create a new policy and regulation on anti-racism to support students who identify as Black, Indigenous, and people of color.
Thank you. Are there any other notices of motion? Last call. Are there any other notices of motion? Thank you very much. We are adjourned. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, John Boy.